Mike shits the bed. Part 1.
Welcome back to fucking shit.
Nail it.
Don't we make you laugh? Aren't we fucking funny?
Does that sound fine?
What's the boogeyman?
Welcome back to the Moonjuice Metal and Horror Podcast, the podcast where we live and breathe heavy metal and horror, but are not afraid to shit on both of them. I'm Mike.
I'm Matt. And we have a special guest, as we always promised you guys we would. The last one we hit up was Fabian from Trollfest. I think you guys are going to be pretty excited about this one. Surprised we got him, actually. So this is Nim from Shylmagoghnar.
Hey guys.
Do you wanna talk about what you do real quick for those who live under a rock?
What I do? Well, I'm currently the only person in Shylmagoghnar, and I make atmospheric and melodic metal, and the rest you can fill in yourself.
So I'll go ahead and piggyback on that. So Nim's a pretty modest guy, but so Nim has been doing Shylmagoghnar for a long time, and if you are into black metal or melodic death metal or black and death metal, you know who this guy is. Like I said, I always try not to nerdgasm all over the entire podcast, but I'm a huge fan and have been for a while. Luckily, I've been able to know Nim and get to know him, and that's why he's on our podcast. He's doing us a really big favor. So
I'm here out of my own accord, so
yeah, he doesn't have a midget holding a gun, thing like that. And so
I can't turn my chair further than this. Sorry, I'm hitting in the head every single time. So.
Because this guy is brave enough to come on, we kind of have to salute you. I still, for one, can't believe that we got you, dude. We're happy to have you here. I'm completely honored. I know Mike
me too.
is too.
I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah. So, like we talked about with Fabian, we said when we get a prolific metal artist on, we want you to kind of pick the film that means the most to you and you really care about in a way. And thankfully, you and I have the exact same tastes, and so does Mike, because we are going to do what, Mike?
Evil Dead.
The Evil Dead.
Evil Dead is what we're doing today.
Evil Dead. We kind of gave a little bit of a hint in the last podcast, but I'm not sure everybody caught it.
Yeah, well,
here we are.
I mentioned the Necronomicon now, so
that's a big giveaway.
That.
Yeah, it's either that or Lovecraft then. So
yeah.
Lovecraft. Oh my God. So we'll probably get a little bit into video games here too. I was talking to Nim the other day about Doom and how all the lore in that is really cool and how they've kind of brought the video game forward. I was shocked because I'm playing it right now and I got to a level that they decided to throw in there, and it takes place in that realm, the Lovecraftian realm. And the fact that they threw that in Doom, I was like, thank you.
It's all of the good things smashed together, right? It's, what more could you possibly want? You're talking
they
about
actually
the new,
found
the new
a way to
Doom
weave
right
it
now,
into the story, and they kept Lovecraft's writing true, like in the architecture and then the story of the realm. It's amazing. So
it's difficult to do, I have to say.
Yeah.
Getting Lovecraft right is very, very sensitive.
It's
really.
tough because there's a lot of interpretation there, but it seems to be like whether it's in metal or whether it's in video games or whether it's in other movies that are more Lovecraftian, everybody kind of sticks to a certain style because that's kind of where creative minds kind of meet. They're like, okay, it's a weird realm with a lot of tentacles, and it's probably dark. So they get all that right? But I love it when Lovecraft anything is introduced in movies or video games and stuff like that. And really, your music is no different either. Like there's a little bit of that.
If there's something hiding beneath the surface, right? That's something that I really enjoy, and that's what Lovecraft means to me. And I agree. Whenever I see that in games and music and in videos and anything or in books, that's that tickles my brain in all the right ways, so to say.
Yeah. Evil Dead, I was thrilled when you said you wanted to do this because this is the one that me and Mike were just trying to figure out when we wanted to do, because it's such a big deal for us, this movie specifically, and then everything that follows. So we didn't want to give it just a normal episode thing. So I was thankful as hell that you came along and were like, oh, let's do Evil Dead. I was like, yes!
There's 3 of them.
Yeah, and we're gonna try to have you on for all 3 films too. We'll see if you can make that work. So thrilled to do it. Speaking particularly about Evil Dead, this movie has this really, really, really long history after the movie was made. There's a really big portion of history before the movie was made, how it got to be made, how these guys pushed and begged, borrowed, and stole to get this movie made. But the history of this film afterwards touches almost every aspect of horror culture and metal. I don't think there's an album from a good death metal band, like specifically death metal, that I've heard that has not referenced this in some way. I can think of probably a million different artists, but for you particularly, how, since you're such a big Evil Dead fan and because you make the music that you make, which is extraordinarily atmospheric, how does Evil Dead influence that, or any horror for that matter?
Horror, and particularly The Evil Dead, had an indirect influence on me because I ended up discovering it in reverse. I didn't get to watch a lot of horror as a child. Not for any particular reason. It was just not a very popular genre in my household back then. But I did play games like Doom, for example, that already has a little bit of I think the shotgun and stuff like that in that game is probably inspired by this movie.
What was?
But much bigger was later on in the game Blood and Duke Nukem as well. But Blood in particular is by far one of my favorite games from that time because it does that same thing that Evil Dead does well. Like somehow it's both horrific and funny at the same time, and the atmosphere is so incredibly thick in that game. And it's just like I got obsessed with that as a child, and everything, the way it looks, the colors that are being used, the atmosphere, but also the music, the atmospheric music with tiny bells going like bing, 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 making everything sound a little bit horrific. And it took me a long time to realize that game was very, very much leaning on the Evil Dead. I think particularly the Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, but you have to start somewhere, right?
Right.
And I ended up discovering it in reverse then. I discovered the third movie first, The Army of Darkness. And from there on out, I guess I got inspired by both the style and the music to do something in my own music that's also, what you call it, subversive, just like the movies are. The movies are never really what you expect them to do. There's a lot of unexpected stuff. And I wanted the music to be the same. I wanted you to think, okay, now he's going to do that. And then I'm going to go the opposite way, basically. I think that's the best way to describe how it influenced me.
Okay. And kind of like we were talking about the other day too, you had made the comment that, and I know we're only talking about Evil Dead right now, but for the whole movie, all three movies, you kind of said something that I didn't realize before, and that was that somehow the best thing that happens in the movie, or the coolest thing that happens in the movie, happens right in the last 20 minutes of the film. Yeah. And that's really for all three films. Like the brilliance of the storytelling and everything.
Which is probably not a coincidence, right?
Yeah, it's not. And because my mind happens to be this way, I immediately went back to metal too. So if you hear a really good metal album, something that's well produced and thought went into everything, that's kind of how metal is too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially your stuff specifically. Like there's ups and downs throughout the songs. It's wholly atmospheric, but everything kind of comes together towards the end. Yeah,
I always spend a lot of time when writing albums. I spend a lot of time trying to figure out, okay, how do I make this album in such a way that it flows from start to end without losing its energy. Or I always say I want an album to be like a book and not a collection of short stories. It's like you can't just throw 10 songs on an album. There you go, it's an album. But that's not an album. That's just songs. And an album should be like the how do you call it? The overarching theme of the songs, so to say. Just like you have the Evil Dead 1, 2, and 3, they're completely different movies, but together they're still the Evil Dead series, so to say. Yeah.
Okay. Before we started tackling more of the Evil Dead and then more about specifically what went into the movie too, I kind of want to put your stuff out there. Like I said, you're a very popular guy within the metal scene for people who like music like I do, Opeth, some of the earlier black metal projects, stuff like that. And you have 3 albums that are out. One of them just came out recently. That was Convergence. But the first one you put out was Emergence, and that was released in February 2014. Am I right?
You probably know that better than I do.
I
can't remember.
Sorry, I'm only downplaying. I'm downplaying my nerdiness, okay?
He's pretending to not know the answer.
If I'm I'm pretty sure that came out in 2014, you can bet probably an hour and a half before I was already making sure I was right.
I'm pretty sure it does. One sector is a little gremlin jumping in front of me, trying to swallow my soul.
Do what you got to do, man.
One sec.
No, take your time. I'm always editing, dude, so you're good.
Yeah.
It's all good, man. I don't have kids, and you don't
Yeah.
either. So I'm always like, I know it's gonna happen. Like if you do
There are
business
people-
meetings or interviews, or you do anything with anybody, there's always kids or somebody jumping around in the background.
I'm absolutely fine with it too. Like he's a very cute little guy. He's 3. He's almost 4 years old now, and generally he sleeps well when you put him in at night. But of course tonight is the night that he's just running back and forth the entire time.
If it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother me, dude. I don't care.
It's totally fine.
But if you need to stop and take care of him or whatever, just let me know. Because like I said, I can always
Thanks,
edit this later.
Really appreciate it. Also,
Yeah,
to make it clear, I'm not alone at home. His mom is here as well, so
Okay,
I'm not just
okay.
letting him run in the background.
No, it's cool. Like I said,
Right.
I'll edit, so you don't even have to worry about it.
No worries. Okay.
So with Emergent specifically, this was self-produced, as is all of your music, right? So
That's
everything
true.
you've put together, mixed yourself, I think, with one other person who's your buddy from high
Yeah.
school, right?
Yeah.
And he's on the first album, correct?
He's on the first and on the second. Yeah,
Right.
he called himself Skilge, and he was mainly the vocalist during Emergence and Transience, and he also did the outro song for Emergence, the synthesizer thing. The Sun No Longer, that song was called. What most people don't know is that was actually a track from his solo project, but his solo project is kind of this thing that he's just always grinding away at, and it's never good enough, so he's never released that. And I've been pushing him for years, like, dude, just release that album. Like, people liked that final track of Emergence, so people probably want more of that, and I'm not able to write that because that's your style, right?
Right.
So yeah, maybe
Was
he'll
there a
still do
particular
that.
reason why he decided not to continue doing that stuff on his own later? Because I fucking love
It's
that song, dude.
perfectionism. Yeah, me too. It's a classic to me as well.
Yeah.
The thing is, we're both perfectionists, but like the sad fact is, like, I'm a perfectionist who has kind of learned to deal with overcoming that, and he's still very much stuck in that not being able to burn bridges part, where he has like a million versions of a song and he cannot pick which one is going to be the final one. And it's cruel. It's really brutal, because I think he's a good musician. Obviously, I work together with him, and I still love the guy despite him not being in this band anymore. I still talk to him almost daily.
Me and Mike are laughing because we also have a very beloved person in our life who is very much a perfectionist.
Yeah.
But I
It's a
think
difficult
Our
thing
lead
to deal with.
guitarist.
our lead guitarist.
Boy, guitarists and a perfectionist is
Yeah,
it's
Which-
not good.
you already know Misha, so
Yeah,
I don't
I
have
do.
to tell you any more about him.
I have
But
vaguely heard of
that's-
him, yes.
Yeah, that's the thing though. I feel like you need somebody like that, because there's always a guy like me who is a metalhead. I've always loved metal. I'm going to be into it if it's good. And so for me, and probably Mike too, because he's said the same thing I've said multiple times. Hey man, the song is good. The song is perfect. Let's release it. We
It's
don't need
done.
to do anymore. This is perfect. But he will stand his ground and be like, no, no, I want to make this change, and I want to make this change, and I want to make this change. And we're all like, okay, dude, it's your thing. And then when he does,
It is, yeah.
it's better.
It's
It's always better.
Yeah, it's never really the doubt whether perfectionism makes things better. Like, it does usually become better unless you just grind it to death, of course. But
Yeah.
let's just say your vision is clear enough that you can make it better. But there's just like a cutoff point where you have to ask yourself, okay, you've been working on this one song for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and no one has heard it yet. You could have made 2 or 3 or even more whole albums in that time. And even if you made a really great song, like, which one of those two is a legacy thing, I think. Like, don't you want to have something on your name?
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, I'm saying this as a devil's advocate to myself, because I make the same mistake, right? Like, I'm doing it right now. Like, just before I came here, I was also working on something of my own that I've been listening on loop for like 2 weeks straight now, and I just keep on changing the most minute things. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's probably a waste of time, but I'll keep doing it. And at some point, it just goes like, okay, now it's done.
I don't know if
I
it's
don't
a
know why.
waste of time though, because like you release something, and I've seen it happen with other friends and stuff. They release a song that everybody else thinks is amazing, but they themselves will be like, God damn it, I wish I'd have just done this one thing, or
Yeah.
I wish I'd have added this one more guitar port or removed something there. It's only you that sees that stuff, but you should also feel really comfortable with what you've released. So I understand that aspect of it as well.
Yeah. I think that's also the thing. Like, yeah, waste of time is the wrong expression. You're right. Like, I think what I'm trying to say is it taints the end result. Like, in the end, you work on this thing, this massive undertaking, and you finish it, and you end up hating it yourself because you burned yourself out on that thing so much that you kind of never want to hear it again.
Right.
So then you really have to ask yourself the question, what the hell am I doing, right?
Right.
It's kind of insane, to be honest.
But I mean, speaking of that, if you go back and listen to Emergence now, and I know you've heard it ad nauseum, right?
Oh.
I never get sick of it. This is one of the ones that I have on once a week. I fucking love this album. Looking
Awesome.
back on it now, do you have things that you wish that you had done differently? Or are you happy now sitting back from it, knowing you're the father of this and you're like, this is great?
Yeah, I think the good thing about Emergence is it's now long enough ago, and also from a different part of my life, that I can look at it from a different perspective. Like, Emergence was mostly written during my early teenage years when I started playing guitar. The production took a bit longer because of perfectionism, but the fact is, many of those songs are roughly 10 years older than the album is. So to me, that's how long those songs are ago. So obviously I can tell you a million things that are pretty how do you call it, amateuristic about them, or that I could done better. I could have performed better. Bass guitar could have been more interesting. The drums, in my opinion, were pretty one-dimensional, or two-dimensional, of course. So stuff like that. But it doesn't bother me, because it's like I can hear myself as a kid playing guitar in my bedroom when I listen to that album. And I have also playing at friends' places, playing at birthday parties and stuff like that of friends. So that's, to me, is what Emergence is. And I don't listen to it from a perfectionistic standpoint. I listen to it like a time capsule. Like you're looking into your photo book of your college years and stuff like that. So
That's more of a nostalgia thing for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And I am nostalgic for it in that regard. So I'm actually very happy with that album because of that.
That's cool. That's one of my favorites. Like to hear you kind of say that, I'm a little bit like, there's nothing on there that sounds amateur to me. I mean, given I'm just a vocalist, I have no idea. Like I have this very, kind of side blinders on view of metal, even though it's
if it
very
sounds
broad.
good, it is good. It's usually, I also on purpose don't want to go into detail of what I think sounds bad, because it may be one of those, once you hear it, you cannot hear it things. I don't want to do that to people.
I doubt that. Your follow-up, Transients, was in 2018.
It was.
And this was also with Napalm Records, right? And this one...
It's the first one with Napalm Records, actually.
Is it the first one?
Yeah, the Emergence
Was the first
debut
one just self-produced?
Was self-produced, self-released.
Okay,
Exactly.
okay. So second one
Absolute
was when you
miracle
signed
that it
with
came
Napalm.
through, to be honest.
Okay. This one, went back and listened to everything again just because I try to do that. Did the same thing when Fabian was on, even though I hear the first album all the time. Transients is probably the one that didn't get as much play for me, probably because of the time in my life. I didn't have as much time for music, but still listened to it a lot. Went back and listened to it. I wouldn't say it's a step up from the original. It's a slight step in a little bit of a different direction. It's like, I guess the lyrics are a little less angry and it tells a little bit more of a story.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Is that kind of what you were going for with this one?
Yeah, we were kind of planning from the start to have we called it the trilogy in spirit, because it's not directly the same story, but we felt that there were certain aspects of life that we wanted to shine a light on. And I think it's weird to go full Buddhist on the same album where you're talking about burning down Eden and stuff like that, right? It's a bit of a contradiction there, maybe. So we wanted to have like the...
Well, a little bit of contrast.
We wanted to have some of the more, just tiny bit. We wanted to have a, what do you call it? We wanted to have like the more earthly emotions, the anger, the hatred, the conflict, the things that disappoint you. And that was Emergence for us, but also the glimmer of hope. Like, everything kind of sucks, but there is still a way out of here. We should take it, basically.
Yeah, that's good.
To be honest, I'm still there right now with the things in the world right now. I still feel like everything is super shit and getting worse, but there might still be a way out. Call me an optimist.
I mean, that's actually a great thing. Like we try to do a little bit of the same thing with our songs, to where it is death metal and it is very dreary, but there has to be some look towards the light at the end. Even if it's a little glimmer, it's still something.
It's something, right? And I also think like it's very easy to just bash on something endlessly and not come up with any solution, or at least a positive word of reinforcement. Yeah. But anyway, that was Emergence. But then Transience was more about that other side of human experience, the inward experience of, okay, who am I, what am I, and being finite and stuff like that. Of course, that's something that many people think about. You're going to die some time, and other things, especially from a perspective of time, may be so much grander or so much smaller than you that it's almost impossible to see things from that perspective. Yet it's all happening at the same time. And I think that's the essence of transience. And because of the more inward direction we took there, that album also went a little bit more psychedelic than the one before that, both in the lyrics and also in the musical styles that we used.
Yeah.
That was something that both Skelga and I were interested at doing in the time.
Okay. The album definitely get a little bit more trippier towards the end too. Like you said, I really like
would
that.
say
That
so.
was something that was done different than the first album.
Uh,
But specifically the lyrics and the themes in that album. Do you ever have anybody, like you've got a million fans, but do you ever get anybody who comes up and is like, "Hey, what did you mean in this song?" or "What are you trying
Yeah.
to say?"
Yeah, all the time. But the cool thing about it is many people figure it out by themselves.
Mhm.
They asked the question, but they already have the answer. And I think they just wanted confirmation. But I've very rarely had that someone says, okay, I listened to this song a couple of times and I think it means this. And they get it completely wrong. That almost never happens, to be honest. It's
Okay.
very interesting. The one that we did get questions about quite often that I found hard to answer because I would say it leans a lot on Skelge's ideology. It's called No Child of Man Could Follow. It's the big, long, epic track on
Yep.
that album.
I love that one.
And
Yeah.
and that one was based on, I'm going to call it a vision because I don't know what else to call it. He had a vision when he was, I think, in high school.
Okay.
Not influenced by anything, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
right,
going
right,
to
right.
add that here.
If it was, we don't judge, so no judgment.
But yeah, I think he had like a moment where he was searching for answers to certain problems in life. And during that day, it was almost like the biblical story. Whenever he asked a question that he couldn't find an answer to, like a raven came down and went like, oh, while he was flying by or something like that, like 3 times during that day. And he was like, okay, that's kind of weird, right? So at
Yeah.
first that song was going to be called The Third Cry of the Raven because each cry
Oh,
was one revelation, basically. I've never said this anywhere else before, by the way. So
That's fucking wild, man.
yes, it was very interesting. But the thing is, Skerge has always been of the opinion that an artist shouldn't explain his work too much. So whenever anyone asks for more information about that, he just doesn't answer. I also don't know what it's about.
I can appreciate that, dude. I think
Yeah, me too. I love it.
Mike, and I were talking offline. I think it was yesterday or something, just
Uh-huh.
about. We actually might have done it on the podcast, but in terms of like movies specifically, you've got great films, and I swear to God, I won't do another Alien rant right now. But there are some films where the story is already ambiguous enough. It's ambiguous enough to make you wonder, and I think wonder is the biggest and best part of a creation. Like you can watch it, you can immerse yourself in it, you can actually be in that world if you like it enough. But at the same time, there's always this sense of wonder about the story and why things are a certain way, and sometimes that can end up being better than the story in the movie itself. Is
Yeah,
that
once you
sense
start
of
explaining
wonder.
it, once you start explaining it, you kind of taking
Exactly.
the magic away.
Right. Yeah. And so then you have prequels that go back and explain everything that happened in a movie. And you're
Yeah.
just like, you know what, man, that
Yeah,
completely
that-
fucking ruins it for me.
And
you know?
then Star
mean,
Wars
just like-
happens.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we talked in the other episode. It's not necessarily an issue with prequels or whatever explaining how stories come to be, but just like you just said it, Nim, there are certain things. If it's not a mystery anymore, it loses it entirely. You know,
Darth
just like
Vader will never
we
be the
come
same
back to
person me
aliens.
after
I
all
literally
of
was
that.
always
Yeah,
fine
no.
with the. I was fine with the fact that xenomorphs. I just thought they were just some species that came from somewhere. Don't know.
Huh?
But now they're like this genetic experiment that is.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
will
must
say that-
also say I also have a little bit of a tendency to just block out things that I don't agree with when it comes to lore of things.
Me too. Yeah.
It's made up by people, so it's just as easy to just say like, yeah, fuck that part. I don't want to. I don't want to
Yeah,
think about that.
yeah.
that's so stupid.
Yeah, that's you're tickling Mike's soft spots. If there's anything about lore and like how you don't break lore and how this is the way this is supposed to be, somebody goes back and completely shits all over it or changes it. Mike's
God,
the first
yes,
one to slam his fist on the table and be like, "No,
Nope.
that's not what
Nope.
fucking vampires do." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
totally
that's
agree. Totally
I'm
agree.
usually always the lore nerd.
You
It's
gotta
great.
have that on a podcast, man.
Man, hey, I love it. Like this is open free. So like if you're on the internet and I particularly like watching people discuss things, right? So this format is so much better than a bunch of angry guys on the internet, because
Ah.
if you go to a room or to a Facebook page where somebody's discussing a movie, you've got probably 90 comments in the first 5 minutes that you can just toss because they're straight garbage
Yeah.
and they don't
Yeah.
have anything to do with it. It's just people hating on each other. And then you have the people that kind of in between want to talk about the eccentricities of a film or a certain kind of music or a song. That's so much more interesting, and that's kind of what the podcast format has, and I love that.
Yeah, I love it too, and I also think like it's a good thing. Like even if you don't necessarily agree on every single thing, there's just something about the comfort of this kind of setup that makes that you can speak on the same level. And I think it's always just a matter of keeping it respectful. It's really not that difficult, but
Yeah.
at
Well,
least I
I
don't
mean,
think so.
I've seen that too, where people are not at all. But I mean, I equate that with like trash TV. It's basically the same thing,
Yeah,
you know.
Jerry
Yeah,
Springer was a
yeah,
very
yeah.
good show for us.
Yeah. Back to your stuff. So you just recently released Convergence, right? And so
Yes.
I have my own opinions about this one. I think this is my favorite one you've done, just because it builds off
Thank
of
you.
the other two albums. And this one tells a fucking great story too. So if you're into reading lyrics when you're listening to a song, this is the most mind-bending one for me. Like there's definitely a story there. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and everything wraps up really well. But you also did this album as a tribute to your mom, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
This album, Convergence, to me was probably the most cathartic album that I've done for Shylmagoghnar. First of all, because it was the first album that I got to do fully by myself, and that's definitely not anything negative towards my former bandmate. Also, I'm just going to add this here because people ask me this many times. Like, my bandmate left for personal life reasons, had nothing to do with the project, and we're still good, so there's no bad blood there. But there's something to be said about doing something completely by yourself. It is, of course, more work and everything, but that doesn't matter. The vision is very clear if you have practiced that kind of stuff, of course. I wouldn't want to do that for a first album, by the way. That would be very, how do you call it? Divergent, so to say.
Yeah.
It would have been called Divergence then, there you go. But yeah, by now, like at the third album of Shylmagoghnar, I knew so perfectly well where I wanted to go with this, and I knew exactly what had to happen. But the bitter thing about it was always going to be about death, about the final journey, and about coming to grips with that. But honestly, while I was writing that, I felt like it's like I'm talking about war when I'm not a veteran. Like, what the fuck do I know, right?
Yeah.
A bit of that feeling. I had that feeling that I was talking about stuff that I had only read in books. And it was not, I didn't want to make the topic smaller than it was.
Right.
And then my mom got hit with the cancer diagnosis. And that was really one of the most horrible times, and a very short time as well, by the way. She had a brain tumor that was so aggressive that it ended up only taking a couple of months until she eventually died to it. And that was a lot more than you can process in a couple of months. And that took me a while. But I have to say, I'm so glad that I had this project as my compatriot, I guess you could say. I'm waving to my kid. But yeah, my compatriot to help me through this process, because it was the only way that I could put into words and into music, of course, what I was feeling. And I've always been a strong believer that your dreams tell you all that you need to know. Like, I think dreams are very much your subconscious communicating to you, like, you should pay attention to this, don't forget this, stuff like that. And during those 3 months, I had so many dreams that I can only describe as visions. They were on a different level from anything else I've ever dreamt before. They were 100% real and so symbolic and just written out word for word like you're writing a film script of someone else. Luckily, I had practice to capture this kind of thing. I had practice for 2 years beforehand to just, when I wake up at night, just write down everything in detail. And when you do that more often, your dreams become more clear and you also can remember more of them. So I was able to capture those, not just the dreams, but also the melodies I've heard in them, what the voices were telling me in the dream and stuff like that. And many of those lyrics that you hear on that album and many of those melodies that you hear on that album are just straight up lifted from a dream that I had during that time, because that must have been what my subconscious had to say at that moment. And I think that is the reason why that album, for many people who are suffering through the same thing right now, still get daily mail about that. It's really like there's so many bad things happening in the world. And once they're in that position and they hear the album, it's like our minds are just connected. There's no filter. They just get it immediately when they hear it.
Yeah.
And that made that album very meaningful to me, I must say. Also, I have to agree with you. Like, I also personally think, despite Emergence being generally the most popular album, I think Convergence is probably my best album. And
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get any argument from me.
because it's honest. It's 100%
Yeah.
honest and 100% truthful. There was no pretense anywhere on that album, I think.
Yeah, yeah. There's that. It's extremely thought provoking to kind of go through and read the lyrics as you go along, but even more so, it's very. And I don't know how you did this, and I've never talked to you about it before. Maybe because I kind of wanted to talk to you about it on here. But your vocal techniques on this are very similar to what happened on the first two albums and what made it really good. But you also kind of put your own spin on it. The vocals.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that I talk to that are even fans that don't know much about Shylmagoghnar in general, that didn't know that the vocals
didn't
were you
notice.
at first.
Yeah, I was very happy about that, because the one thing that scared me when Skerriga left was not the thought of, can I do this alone? Because I had already done vocals on some of the songs before. So I knew I could handle those, but I was very afraid of the vocal is a very recognizable element, right? So when you exchange that, there have been many bands in the past that have great musicians in them, but as soon as the vocalist changes, people just go like, it's not the same band anymore. I'm out.
Yeah.
I was so afraid that was going to happen, especially on this album that was so important for me.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. But you know what? At some point I was just like, well, I can't change it. So fuck it, right? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it as well as I can, and we'll see what happens. And in general, most people have been very positive about it.
Yeah,
There's
you
also-
fucking killed it.
There have also been people that just said, hey, it's great, but honestly, I prefer the original vocal, which is fine. To truth be told, I prefer the original vocal, so I can't argue with that.
No, you killed it. I mean, I didn't read anything specifically about this. Is what I do if I have a band that I really love. I won't read anything about the album. It's almost like a spoiler thing. I'll stay away from it. I don't want to hear anybody's judgments, nothing. I want to hear the album myself. I want to lock myself away with my headphones on and listen to it from beginning to end. And then I want to do that again the next day and the next day until I get what's going on there. And it took me probably until the second playthrough to realize that it wasn't the original vocals from the other two albums. So you nailed it.
That's cool.
You nailed it, and you kind of stepped it up in some places too, honestly. That's not saying anything bad about him. He's got his own style, and it's great, and I love it.
Of course, yeah.
You did something different, and I think maybe that's what that album needed, because it was on a very personal level for you. It's obvious through the writing in the album. It should just be your thing, honestly.
Yeah.
I think.
For that album particularly, I agree. Like, for other albums, I would probably have preferred if I still had Skerriga around. And I'm also basically leaving the option open. Like, if he ever returns or if he ever wants to do a song together, like, that's still totally on the table. He's just not in that place right now. But yeah, for that album, I have to say, I really, by the time that the whole stuff was happening, I knew, okay, even if someone comes up now and says, hey, I can do the vocals for you, I would have said no, because it's my journey. I have to do this by myself, basically.
Yeah. And it worked out pretty fucking well, dude.
Thank you.
I love that album. Now what I did want to do too, I have two things. One is we talked about this a little bit before we started, but I have a friend who is a huge fan, and she specifically wanted to know where the name Nimblkorg comes from, because everybody who's talked to you or been on your page or has anything to do with you calls you Nim, me included. So what's the story behind the original name?
Yeah, so a little bit of background is required for that. Most people who listen to Shylmagoghnar probably already know this. I have Jesus Christ, I can't think of the word right now for some reason, but I have mental health issues, and I've had them for a very long time. Schizoaffective disorder. There you go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That basically means that you have similar troubles as people with bipolar disorder, where you go between depressions and manic situations. But one of the big differences is that you can also have psychosis or dissociation and that kind of stuff with it. And psychosis is something that has been with me for almost as long as I can remember. But it started out pretty innocuous, basically. I barely noticed that it was there, especially because children just say weird shit sometimes, right? So if a kid says, hey, there's a weird man in my bedroom, you just go like, Okay, I'll check for you. See, there's no guy. Okay, bye. But for me, that stuff was real, and it got worse over time. And there was a particular, I'm not even going to call it a person, it was really more of an entity that has been very aggressive to me for as long as I can remember. And his name is Korg. And that's not the synthesizer dude. It's like a shape-shifting kind of being that both in the waking world and in nightmares, he tends to be extremely aggressive. And it's like, I can only call it an abusive relationship because he keeps coming back. But he also keeps coming back at moments where I'm doing really well. And one of those moments was when I was playing guitar for the first 2 or 3 years. I had a breakthrough moment. Might even have been the moment where I started writing Shylmagoghnar songs at first. There was this moment where I realized, man, it's going really well. I feel like I'm really doing this thing, right? And then it was like my mind zoomed out for a bit. And I saw this gigantic, hairy creature with claws just resting on my shoulder. And basically the message was, you're not doing it. We're doing it. I'm giving you this, but you have to keep me around or you'll lose it. That was the message with that thing.
Holy shit, man.
And that's the thing about psychosis is when stuff like this happens to you, there is no rational thinking connected to it. You just see it and you take it for 100% truth.
Okay.
Is when I always compare it to the dreamlike state of thinking. Like when you're in a dream and your house is upside down, you don't think about it for a second. It's just like, oh, okay, I guess my house is upside down today. It's just that's the way it feels, right?
Okay.
So this is around the years, around my, let's say, my early to late teens, and that's when psychosis generally starts to grow in people who have this problem, and it usually peaks around 20, 21 years old, which is around the time that I was writing most of Shylmagoghnar's songs. So this entity was with me the entire time, basically just beating me up mentally all day long, pushing me to commit things that I'd rather not mention here. I didn't do anything bad, but I didn't like myself very much at those days. Let's put it that way. So the name Nimblkorg is my head language. Nim is me. The bl part means and also. So my name is Nim and also Korg, since we're one entity basically.
That's crazy. Have you
pretty
talked about this before on podcasts or anything like that?
I can't remember. Like I had one talk with a guy who was schizophrenic, and I think you saw that conversation.
I just saw that. I was watching it yesterday again.
It was a really, really cool guy, by the way.
Noticed you had a Doom shirt on too.
Oh yeah, exactly. I nearly had that one today, and I was like, you know what? Let's take the Diablo shirt today. But yeah, I feel like that's something that I would have brought up on that on that show, but I can't remember if I did. But it's not something that I generally speak out in public. I've gotten a little bit better at talking about this kind of stuff because I used to just bottle it all up and not talk about anything and pretend that it was fine. But that did quite a number on me during those years, so I'm not doing that again.
I gotcha. Okay. Thanks for sharing that, man. I've been a fan forever and like watched a lot of things that you've done and also read your replies back to people when they've asked you things, and I've never heard that before. So thanks.
Yeah, I used to lie about it. I think on the Metal Archives there's a quote about that name that I wrote down back then because I didn't want to tell the truth, so I just said like it's a gruesome man beast from literature or something like that. It's complete bullshit.
Okay.
So someone go edit this now, right? Please, because it's not true.
No, it's on tape. It's not coming off now. Do you find and stop me if you don't want to talk about any of this stuff. I just find it interesting because I also have issues, you know.
Yeah, I've had your own issues, yeah.
Me and Mike both have severe ADHD. I've also got pretty bad PTSD, and I think
I know that. Yeah.
Tell me if it's true with you, the ability to accept these things and kind of take them into yourself and say, I'm dealing with this and I'm going to use whatever positive I can off of it to create something that I like. Has that been kind of where you're at with Shylmagoghnar and your acceptance of this?
Yeah, I guess so. It's a bit of up and down because of the whole bouncing back and forth between the depression and the mania. It tends to go back and forth. Like, during the manic periods, I tend to think that it's really great that I have this problem because, hey, you get all of these ideas and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But then you fall back into the depression and then you just sit there for 3 months, completely unable to do anything. And you go like, man, I would get so much more stuff done if I didn't have this fucking demon on my back all day long, right? It's just, I absolutely hate it. But at the same time, I think I would be a very different person if this had never happened to me. And I'm 100% certain that Shylmagoghnar would have not existed. So.
Yeah.
I guess there's
That's
that.
kind of what I was getting at. I think maybe it enables you to. I don't want to use the word channel because that implies something spiritual, which I don't. I
No,
personally wouldn't.
I do kind of think that there's some channeling going
Yeah.
on there, though. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's super interesting. Like I don't honestly know, and this is maybe something a lot of metalheads can relate to. If you have friends that are in bands and you have people that are creators and people who really love what we do, you know, like you would give your all for this. A lot of them have mental issues of some kind, right?
Definitely.
And I don't think it's kind of an old adage and it does sound a little bit cliche, but I don't think there is any real art, if you want to call, you know, like metal art, which it absolutely is. I'd argue to anyone tooth and nail that it is absolute one of the highest forms of art. But if you have art, that does not happen without suffering or, you know, without some type of anguish of some kind, whether it's physical or mental or anything else, that stuff needs an outlet. Right.
I think so too. Think one of the main points of art to me, next to creating cultural change, is to face the I'm going to call it the shadow because I mainly know it from Carl Jung's work. He calls it the shadow. Basically, the stuff that you bottle up and that you don't want to think about tends to get stronger in the back of your mind, and it just grows like this wild being that you can't control anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important also for people who don't necessarily have like big mental issues to at least take out that beast every now and then and just look at it and then see that it's just a small dog, basically. Like you have to keep it in check. And I think the whole thing about metal is that it constantly does that. So, like there's a lot of themes in metal that are about anguish, suffering, pain, cruel acts, monstrosities, horror, all that kind of stuff. Generally, the reason why people think that metal is about a lot of negative stuff, but they tend to avoid the fact that you have to face that negative stuff if you want to live a positive life. And I think I think that's the reason why many people who create that metal have mental issues, because they figured out, hey, this is the way that I can keep my demons at bay, so to say.
Yeah. And I think what's the problem for most people is finding a place to channel that. If you like, I can only speak for myself because I don't necessarily have any music talent. Like I may help write some songs and I may only be a vocalist, but I don't have any musical talent. I'm not like Mike or anybody else in the band. But to finally have this outlet after years and years and years of dealing with my own mind and not knowing where to put it, because you can't go to work and you can't attack people. And you don't necessarily want to. You don't want to put that on anybody else. And you start to get the feeling like this is my battle and I have to find somewhere to put this. And unfortunately for a lot of people, the place to put that is into alcohol or drugs or addiction. But all that does is complicate the problem. So in finding art and in finding something that I can be inspired to do, I've effectively not killed that, but subdued it. And I want other people out there, and maybe you can speak to this too. I want other people out there to find the things that are torturing them and then try your best to channel it into something positive.
Yeah. Totally agree.
You know?
I totally agree. I think that's the best way to put it. Absolutely. Doesn't even matter if it's music, can be something else as well. But basically, find a constructive way to handle that destructive thing that's crawling around inside of you. Like, don't let it destroy you. You're just letting it win then. That's not the solution. And I think for many of us, metal is, in that regard, a healthy coping mechanism.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably been the only thing for me in all these years, you know, that's actually helped me get out of this hole.
I'm really happy that you found yourself in that. And I of course, behind the scenes, people haven't heard anything of that yet, but behind the scenes, I have heard you develop as a vocalist, and I'm very positive about you. So keep it up, man.
We'll see where it goes, man. I would love to talk about it, but I can't yet. But just know me and them know each other for another reason as well, and pretty soon that'll probably come to light a little bit later. But yeah, I really, really wanted to talk about the mental health aspect of everything because I feel like that's a piece that doesn't get touched by a lot of people. Either they're worried that they're going to offend the person they're talking to about it because it's not glorious stuff to talk about, right?
No.
But if you are willing to talk about it and you can show other people that you are a force for positive and you're able to come out of it okay and do something amazing with it, because let's face it, Shylmagoghnar and everything that's on all those albums is amazing. It's prolific. It's its own thing. You don't do what anybody else does, and because of that, I think it stands out above everything else. I know that you don't play live, and I know why you don't play
Wow.
live. Do you want
Yeah.
to mention that, or do you want to?
Yeah, I can bring it up because it does get mentioned a lot, of course. And well, at first I would oftentimes just point at the mental issues. It's just really a fact that I can't really be among many people. I can't stand when there's sound and light that's outside of my control. And well, I mean, when you're standing on a stage, it's basically just a barrage of everything. And by the way, I have tried it in the past, not with Shylmagoghnar, but with other side projects. It's really not a place where I want to be. Nowadays, luckily, I can say mentally I'm doing a lot better than I did during those early years of the band. So I can't purely point at that anymore, but I still just have to be honest. Live music has never been my thing, and it's just kind of not a goal for me. I oftentimes compare it to writing a book versus publicly reading that book.
Yeah.
To me, those are two completely different skills, but for some reason in music, those are kind of considered the same. And I'm just like, no, dude, I'm a writer. I don't want to read it in front of people. I just want to write books. It's kind of just what I do.
And I think most of your fans, including myself, completely accept that. And I'm not really sure that everything needs a live version either. Like there's so many albums in metal that I love that I would never want to see played live, just because I feel like everything that song and that album was meant to be is encapsulated on the album itself.
That's the way I feel about it as well. It's a self-contained capsule, and also in that regard, just playing the songs nilly-willy together would also not have the same effect to me as playing something from start to finish. So I wouldn't even really know how to shape that show, so to say.
I get it.
Not to mention the whole that I am staying at home with a kid nowadays, and I don't have extra band members, so I would kind of have to abandon my current life to even make something like that possible, and I just don't see that happening.
No, I don't think it needs to be either. I think if you listen to the albums and you really listen, that's really all you need to do.
I mean, I will admit, I know that many people would be happy if I did play live, and I do regret that I do not feel that, because otherwise I'm sure that it would make many people happy, and myself as well. But
there's a whole lot of stress that goes along with that too, and I learned that more and more being with Texas, and I learned it from friends like Fabian and everybody else.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle.
Right? That really is something you almost have to give up everything for to make really work.
And if you're very young and you don't really have any roots that hold you anywhere, then I can see how that's super exciting. But to me nowadays, like, the band is still extremely important to me. Like, for me personally, the most important thing. But the real most important thing outside of my own brain is my wife and my kid. That's my main thing in my life. Right. So that's really the thing that I choose for when it comes down to that.
Yeah. I wonder how many other people would love to play live but just can't get it together, because there's the people who want to play live. I got a couple of friends that would love to play live. They just can't find that cohesive group of people to get together with. And I think that's the other thing that can really make it or break it too. Like,
absolutely,
I don't think your music would be what it is if it was you and a bunch of other people, because then there's all these decisions that have to go into that. And hey, how should this sound, and how should this sound? You have something that is purely your baby, and that's impressive. That's cool. And how many bands have you seen that play live that just have a terrible relationship with each other? It just
probably more than you know.
Oh, yeah,
a lot of them.
Dude, absolutely.
Yeah.
You hear horror stories all the time, and I think I don't think, me personally, that I would really have been into it at all if I hadn't met such a good group of people. Like, I myself am very picky with who I choose to call a friend and who I choose to let in. And the guys in Texas have just been awesome. Like, I have not had a disagreement with any of these guys about anything. And usually if there is something that comes up that we disagree on, we find a nice way to tackle it and work it out. But I think I've been blessed in that. That doesn't happen much.
That's really lucky. Like, there's usually some drama in some form, and there's usually at least one person in the band that's outgrowing the bridges faster than the other ones, and
absolutely
they become a diva of some sort, and it rarely ends well.
Yeah, the thing is, drama in bands, I mean, not with Texas the way it's been the last 15 years, but before that, I founded the band. There was a lot of drama going on with the people. We had a different name, was different people, and it was just, we had drama. You can really have a lot being ruined by one singular person.
Absolutely. Can be super poisonous.
And it's quite difficult. It's also, being in a band, it's difficult to find people you vibe with. You know, when I was looking for people for Texas, it was not necessarily okay. There were a lot of people back in the day that just didn't take me seriously. A lot of people laughed at me. A lot of people said this project isn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah, that
But-
sucks, dude.
But besides that, there were also just a lot of people where it was super vibed with the people, but they didn't really have enough talent at the time that it could work out. Or the other way around, they were super talented, but complete fucking assholes. You know? So,
Yeah.
so it was kind of really difficult. And I'm also, I would say, just like Matt, actually very happy that I really just found like 4 other guys that are just as fucking crazy as me.
It is probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so it's always really important to hold on to stuff like that. It's true. I guess also,
Absolutely.
even if you vibe with everyone, it could be that like 2 of those people don't vibe with each other, and it's just, people are difficult to work with.
Yeah, it's a mess, and it's difficult. That's one thing about your stuff. It's difficult to have to try to make decisions while everybody else has a different vision than you do. And
Yeah.
I think that's why Shylmagoghnar works so well. Honestly,
I'm sometimes really happy. Like I said, I do miss my my former bandmate, but when it comes to vision and execution, I must say it's quite comfortable when you just know, like, okay, I can just go with my ideas. That doesn't mean that I'm just going to throw everything against the wall. Of course, I'm pretty filtering about my own ideas as well.
Yeah.
But I do feel that in the end, the result is more exactly what was originally envisioned.
Yeah.
To just throw in another quick example, the way we used to write songs was that I made the music as a demo, sent that to my bandmate, and then Skerge would write lyrics to that, visit me at my studio, and then he would scream in the lyrics. And the thing was, like, I purposely never told him, hey, this song is going to be about that. I also gave it vague, like, just working titles, so he would have a nudge, but I never got involved with what it was about. It's like, okay, whatever you hear in it, that's what it will be about.
Yeah.
Which was a cool way to work, but that did mean that in the end, even when the albums had a narrative, it wasn't a perfectly smooth narrative, because some of the songs he may have heard something different from me, some of the songs he may have heard the same thing as I did, so the lyrics were not really clicking together. And when you're by yourself, you can just really go like, okay, I have a story, I have these phases of the story, and I need to fill them in with lyrics, and then every single song with lyrics will continue the story in some meaningful way to bring it to an end. And that's something we didn't have on the first 2 albums, and it did happen on the third, because it's just a story that goes from start to end now.
Yeah. So this album has gotten a lot of traction since it came out. Like it's done. I mean, sales wise, I don't know how it's done, because honestly, and I don't want to get into this because I fucking hate it, but real art and music doesn't really make money like it used to. So you kind of have to go into this and love what you do and let that be enough.
Yeah.
That was a lesson I had to learn, and I was fine with it because I was told it up front. But for people like you actually do this because you love it. It's therapeutic for you, and it's a product that you can be proud of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've definitely made a lot of choices that I would say that were very obviously towards quality and not towards finance. So
absolutely, yeah.
And that never changes. So I must also say, like, generally, I'm very disappointed in the way that the music scene has changed, especially over the last, let's say, 10 years, maybe even less, maybe just 5 years. Like, everything has shifted from creating music that has meaning to basically just being whoever can jump the highest in front of a camera. It's not about music anymore, and I despise it. And, you know, it's also one of those things, like, if I was going for the money, I would be right next to them, jumping as high as I can. But I don't. I choose to do the opposite. I choose to dig even deeper into the music and screw all that noise, basically. I'm not going to do that. And I'm straight up just not posting anything right now, because I don't even know what to post that will not just get drowned out in the noise right away. It's
the saturation level with music in general. If a lot of this stuff you can even call music, like you get into that kind of conversation about the stuff that's being put out right now, even in the metal world, and you start to hurt feelings. So I don't want to get into that, but there is, if you have an ear for it, stuff or a feel for it. There is stuff that actually means something
Uh,
and has an art style to it and is very deep. And then there's very surface stuff. And unfortunately, the surface stuff is what sells, right? It's
yeah,
what
that
sells.
is. Yeah,
It's what sells
Yeah.
ticket sales. It's what sells records, stuff like that. And most of it, and you know, me and Mike have had this discussion, and I know you and I have had this discussion.
uh,
There's just not many bands that I even listen to anymore. I mean,
yeah,
I'll give anything a go just to give it a chance. But if it doesn't do anything for me, I quit listening to it. And that volume of music over the years has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller to where now I have a handful of bands that I listen to, and that's it. And it's because there's nostalgia there, there's feeling to it. There's a lot of working elements that go on behind the scenes in the music that you can hear if you have an ear for it. And that
yeah.
stuff tickles my brain. And
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I think there's also the thing. Like, I also totally get it. I also get that certain things just sell better, and I'm also like, I'm not even necessarily negative about bands that take the more let's call it the popular approach, because I also understand like some bands are just fun to watch live.
Yeah.
You also like you need party music, you need something to drink a beer to, stuff like that. It has a function. I totally get that. I just kind of wish that there was a way for the, let's call it the more serious stuff to have its own place, so it doesn't get waltzed over by the party gang, so
Yeah.
to say.
yeah,
And that's, I guess that's the thing that I could say I'm a bit bitter about. I'm not bitter about those other bands existing. Like, totally not. I enjoy some of them even, but I feel like
We
it's
all
a
do.
very different kind of, we have very different goals in our life, and it just kind of feels weird that one of them doesn't get heard because the other just screams louder, so to say. It's, I don't really know how to solve that, to be honest. Yeah.
put it on the. So I don't want to like hit you with a question that puts you on the spot, so I'm not going to do it. But no, I'm not going to do it. I will say I personally, as well as many people that I know in the scene, and there's just people who listen to metal, are really interested in what you do next. So I hope that you are continuing and that you still feel like you want to make music from me to you.
Definitely. Like, it's still happening, and I will even say I have a positive thing to say about that.
Okay.
I had a very big burnout for like a year straight after the release of the last album, and I honestly thought for a moment that I had lost it, that I was going to quit, and really didn't want to, because, like I said earlier, the band has been such a compatriot to me and in so many important parts of my life that it felt like I was leaving my friend behind. But I was looking at the guitar at my wall, and I was just thinking, I don't like playing guitar anymore. And that was really one of the most painful thoughts I've ever had in my life. Just the thought of losing that one thing that I connect so dearly with for so long, right?
Yeah.
And luckily, and many times when I talk about stuff like this, at some point my wife comes up, because she's generally my guardian angel in this kind of stuff. She's always the one that tells me, like, don't make a decision. Just wait. You don't have to do anything. Just
She's
chill
right.
the hell out and just see what happens, right? And so I did. I just didn't bother with music for a couple of months. And at some point, I've been playing on a camper for very long, and I still think it's a fucking amazing device. But I was just like, you know what? I'm going to plug into my old PV, my 6505, the one that I recorded Emergence with. And I just blasted that thing through a speaker, blasted it through hell, played as loud as I fucking could. And there it was. There was the joy. There was the happiness. And I was like, okay, I guess I just needed that simplicity. I just needed to stand in front of an amp that just shakes my gut whenever I touch a guitar string. That's all I needed. It was just the sitting in front of speakers with headphones on. That was killing my joy of guitar playing. I'm not saying that everyone should do that, by the way. Like, those things, the campers and stuff, they are amazing. But if you're feeling that burnout like I do, maybe you should just be showered by a marshal or something like that. It might bring back the joy. So,
I got you.
so
I
there you
got
go.
you.
Yeah. So I'm back, man.
So kind of just to step away sometimes and to give yourself a break from it
Absolutely.
is better. That's cool, dude. That's cool. I'm
That's cool.
I can't really give you enough compliments about the stuff, and you're probably sick of hearing it, but
I was never good with taking compliments,
Yeah.
but I can take them from you.
What?
I'm happy about it. Thank you.
I'm glad. I didn't want to make you feel uncomfortable. I don't want like to see your screen and then I'm kind of cozying up on your like, wait, you're in my house? What the fuck? I'm just kidding.
Wait a minute, that's my bathroom. Sick fuck.
So one thing I did want to do, I hit you up before we decided to do the podcast and asked you, we're going to do 3 episodes. Obviously, we're going to do Evil Dead 1, Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness. And for each episode, I want wanted you to pick a song from your stuff that you wanted to play. I think this is a great opportunity for anyone who is into horror but may not be into metal to hear something that might make you think a little bit or that you might enjoy. Plus, I love getting great music out there. Like I'm not gonna have Slipknot on here and play one of their songs. You know what I mean? Like it's got to be good stuff. And that's my only rule with this podcast is that it has to be music that means something. It's got to be passionate and it's got to be something special. And the same with Flesh Meadow, like we did the last time. I wanted you to pick a song to play. And what song is it that we're going to hear right now?
I Am the Abyss.
I Am the Abyss. Do you want to tell us something about the song first, or would you rather everybody hear it first and then talk about it afterwards?
I'll give it a short introduction and I'll leave everything else to the listeners.
Okay.
Well, with the introduction that I just gave about the whole mental health issues, that kind of ruined my life at some point, to the point where I just had to drop all of my hopes and my dreams. And that was a year when I was sitting at home, not able to do anything, as I became more and more ill. And I honestly thought my life was going to end at that point because I didn't know how long I was going to last. And a friend of mine told me you should consider meditation, like go inward, see what you see. So I tried that, and I saw inward, but I didn't like what I saw, and that's what that song is about.
Okay. So awesome. Okay, so we'll listen to it real quick, and then we'll be back and we'll discuss a little bit about the song, and then get into Evil Dead. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay,
great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Here's "I Am the Abyss" by Shylmagoghnar. Okay, we're back. Fucking love that song for a few reasons. One, because it's an instrumental track and it opens up the album. Like it's the literal first piece of you that anybody ever got to hear if they listened to the album. Why did you choose to pick? It's like I don't know. Why did you choose to pick an instrumental soundscape for the opening song? What's
That's
the?
a question that I've been waiting for a long time. That was a
I
very
mean, it's
purposeful
intuitive
decision.
because it's a bold choice, but it works. You know.
I think that's the thing, right? Like, I knew beforehand, okay, it's like this. I felt that to truly understand and appreciate the Emergence album and the themes on it, you had to first settle into my brain, basically, into my mindset, into our mindset, I should say, of course. And, well, the album didn't used to open with that track. That track was the last track that was written for the album. And I could just tell, okay, you can't just open up the album on a track like Emergence or Eden in Ashes. And it used to start with the final track, The Sun No Longer by Skerge.
No shit.
Yeah.
Holy
We had demo albums before
Okay.
that started with that, and it kind of worked, to be honest. But the thing is, the version that landed on the album was a little bit longer, if I recall correctly, than the original. And so, if you have a song like The Sun No Longer, and it lasts for, let's say, 1 minute, people can accept, okay, this is an intro, and then the metal starts, as you have heard a million times before.
Right, of course.
But if it goes on for a couple of minutes, people don't think this is an intro. People think this is what the entire album will sound like. And if you're a metal fan, there's a very high chance that you go like, okay, not my album, click next, and they will never come back again.
Holy
But we
shit.
still wanted that song on the album, and that's why it still worked perfectly as an ending. That's why you put it there. But suddenly we had this gaping opening in the first part of the album, where it just dropped into Emergence and Eden and Ashes and all those tracks, and it didn't work. And I was like, okay, I need to write something that's both an intro for the album that puts you into my mindset, but it should also be something that's far more than you would usually get from an intro. So it's still a description of what you can expect from Shylmagoghnar. And I mean, I've always enjoyed writing instrumentals. There's multiple on that album as well. So in that regard, it wasn't that much of a strange decision for me to make it instrumental, but it wasn't going to be an instrumental. There were vocals planned for it. We even recorded them, but we did not. Let's put it this way. Whenever I listened to the track with the vocals, I felt that the parts of the song that you could really feel felt less intense. The vocals distracted from what actually was in the song already.
Right.
And that's why we had to make the difficult decision. It was very difficult for my bandmate, because that was probably the song he spent most of his energy on, writing lyrics and stuff.
Yeah, okay.
That was a really bitter pill for him, and we still talk about it sometimes, because that song is probably the most popular Shylmagoghnar song. He wrote and recorded for it, and he's not on it. So he basically gets zero credit for it, and that's kind of brutal, to be honest.
Have you ever thought about going back and releasing that song with his vocals on it as an
I don't have it
addition to a
anymore.
further album?
I don't have it anymore, because that was around the time where I noticed like, if you want to release this album, you're going to have to burn bridges. You have to burn bridges. So everything I didn't use, not just his vocals, by the way, my own shit as well, everything I didn't use just went straight into the bin. So I did not have the option to go back later and go like, maybe I should put these back in.
Holy
So
shit.
I don't have it anymore. Makes me kind of sad, to be honest, because I think it was good. It was just, in my opinion, not as good as the instrumental version of it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
it's,
instrumentally,
it's
it's a monster of a song that really doesn't need vocals. I don't think
that's the thing, right? It
Yeah.
works. It just does, yeah.
if you hear a song a lot of times, and if you're a metalhead, you know this, you hear something and you're like, oh, I can tell this is a song that's going to have some vocals that pop in a minute, right? And they do. This song doesn't feel like it's going to have vocals that pop in from beginning
No, exactly.
to end. Like you're not
The
waiting
lead
on
guitars kind of do the job already. Like
Yeah.
it's just the things that are moving in the background. It was just simply not necessary. So yeah, I knew that, okay, this is going to be a long instrumental. We're going to open the album with it. That's certainly a bold choice. But you know what? Sometimes you have to lean into your weaknesses. I mean, we called our band Shylmagoghnar, so by default we were already kind of not doing things to be popular. Basically, we were
Right.
doing things because we wanted to be them to be our way. So I was just like, well, let's just make a bold move then, and just straight up open up with a big instrumental and see what happens. And
Yeah.
if people don't like it, they're probably not going to like Shylmagoghnar anyway, so it's fine. But if they do like it, they're probably exactly the people that we want to reach, because we have more of where that came from. But then, of course, also songs with vocals. And the irony of the entire thing is that the biggest complaint we get all the time is that people now open the Emergence for the first time, they hear I Am the Abyss, and then they're disappointed when the vocals set in, because they expected the entire album to be an instrumental.
Okay.
So
Okay.
no matter what you do, you can never do it right.
That's interesting.
Okay. Well,
It is what it is, I guess.
there's a certain. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've actually considered a few times to just release that album fully instrumental because I know there's many people who like that kind of stuff that just want to go through the journey without the distraction of a voice. But once again, I've already had the painful decision making of removing my bandmate from that one song that he worked so hard on. Am I really going to do that to the other songs he did as well?
No.
It feels kind of like a dick move, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
I
don't
get
want
that.
to do that.
So
that's really I've been constantly stuck between this place where I'm like, I want to give those people that enjoy that kind of stuff what they want, but not at the cost of kicking my friend when he's already down, basically. And that's kind of the pain point there. Yeah,
I get it. But it, as a whole, the decision worked out for the best, because I
think so.
After, it's kind of one of those things where if you're close to something long enough, you kind of accept that that's the way that it is, and any other way that you would hear it would not be right. But I feel like the choice that you made with that first song in the entire album itself, it wouldn't sound good any other way.
No,
like you need to be introduced to a soundscape, which probably more than anything. And if I'm stepping on your toes, I'm sorry, I don't mean this, but the album is so atmospheric. In general, Shylmagoghnar as a project is one of the most atmospheric metal bands I've ever heard. And I feel like that introduction specifically lets you know what's waiting. And then the vocals are just a nice bonus. You know what I mean? Because I listen to it because I love the music. Of course, the vocals are part of it, and you have to see it as one big thing. But, I mean, there's so much going on in the music.
Yeah, I also think like the vocals, to me, the vocals have always been the juxtaposition to the atmospheric part. Like there's a bit of atmosphere and a bit of power. Because when something becomes too atmosphere, like I don't necessarily want to be the Enya of metal, you know what I mean? But so you need something dirty and aggressive in between to mix it up. I think you have to make something like contrast. Contrast is always the trick. You have to make something brutal, evil, grimy, to then show the beam of sunlight afterwards and make that really, really hit the right way. And I think that's the way that vocals work for me in Shylma. They are generally like the counterpart to the more atmospheric and slower passages of instrumentals.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I love the album. You do this a few other times on the other albums where you have some instrumentals, and there's some surprises specifically with the last album and what you chose to do with one of the instrumentals. But we can get to that when we come to that album when you play a song that you pick. But there's some brilliant choices there that got made where you did an instrumental and it was a lot different than other instrumentals that you've done before. And it works. It was unexpected, but in terms of the whole album, it fits like a puzzle piece.
Yeah.
It's so rare that you get that from metal.
To me, there's basically always two things that I ask myself before I put a song on an album. First of all, is it different from something else that I've made? It has to be. If it's the same as something else, I'm not going to do it. And what function does this song have? Does the album require that, and at what point? And then I write it exactly to fill that slot. So generally the tempo and the key of a song is adjusted to where it will land on an album as well, which of course has a massive impact on the song. So it's kind of interesting to imagine, for example, I Am the Abyss, what would it have sounded like if it was on the middle of that album? It would have probably been a very different track because of that. Yeah,
it would have. Absolutely. Just with everything else surrounding it, I'm not really sure it would fit anywhere else either.
No, I don't think so. It has to be an opener.
Yeah. It's fucking great. Okay. I don't want to ask you what your next song that you're going to pick is for the next episode, even though I'm so curious. It's like right on the tip of my tongue, but I'll let it be because we got to get into Evil Dead.
Let's see if you next time.
I probably can. Do you want me to do that next episode? Just be like, is it this one? And we'll see if I'm right or not.
Sure. And then I'll just not agreeingly and pretend that it was where I was going the entire time.
It's rigged. So is there, before we get into Evil Dead, is there anything specific in horror, any elements of horror movies, or even if you want to go into, Lovecraftian ideas or any of that storyline and the feeling, do you feel like any of that has had an impact on your music specifically in terms of tone? It's probably a dumb question because of course, right?
Yeah, specifically, it's the things that you don't see, the things that are left away, the things that are gnawing away at the back of your mind, the fears and stuff like that. And that's something that's present in most horror that I like, not just Evil Dead. And generally, that's why Lovecraftian themes oftentimes come up, because that's the entire beauty of Lovecraft. Generally, he talks about things from a perspective of someone who doesn't know what's going on, and that's what makes it so good. And I think that's something that I want to honor in my music as well. I try to put subliminal stuff in there, like Morse codes and all that kind of stuff. And also, the truth is, to some of the music, I don't even fully know what's going on because it's straight from a dream, and that always has a certain way it works in you. I can't even come up with the words. It clicks in other people's brains in ways that other things don't.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's like a code embedded in there, and I'm not even aware of it. So that's also a little bit of that. Well, I wouldn't call it cosmic horror, but it's cosmic something.
Yeah.
Let's put it.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. We have a little bit of that too with our other project.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, you almost feel sometimes like you might be channeling something, kind of like what we talked about before, because the ideas don't really feel like they're coming from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I kind of feel it relates a little bit to Evil Dead in the fact that I don't think I've read enough behind the scenes about Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi, and Rob Tapert, where they came up for this idea for this film.
Mm-hmm.
This idea was kind of from a previous film that was released probably I think it was 5 years before Evil Dead.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
It's almost the exact same story. The movie's called Equinox, and it's a couple of kids that go to a cabin in the woods, and they have a car that's an old-timey car just like they do. They find a book. It has sacred passages in it. It leans a little bit more into Lovecraft than probably Evil Dead does. But these guys felt something with that film that they hadn't felt before. And if you listen to them talk about it, they're like, this was an idea that was fresh. It was brilliant. The execution was not so great. Sam Raimi says, I felt like we could do better and maybe honor that work a little bit more. And that's why The Evil Dead got made. I did not know this. This is something that Evil Dead has been in my top 5 movies of all time since I was probably 8 years old. Right. And I never knew that this other movie existed. But
no, to me it was also fresh. I also didn't figure it out until I did my own homework for this episode.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, there was more. Calling me interested.
Yeah. It's not a ripoff. I wouldn't call it a ripoff at all. It's more heavily influenced by this film, right? And arguably they did with this movie what the other movie did not do, and that is to portray a sense of dread and horror and a very lonely, trapped feeling, not just in the visuals that you got on screen, but also in the music, the soundtrack, the sounds that you hear going on in the background,
the effects.
Everything was thought of and used to their advantage in this film as much as they could. It feels like a perfectionist film. And a lot of people would look at The Evil Dead, including us when we were younger, and be like, what do you mean perfect?
Yeah, it's obviously not perfect. The thing about Evil Dead, especially that first one, is, to me, it's very obvious that no matter how these people would have made this movie, no matter what the outcome would have been, the atmosphere would have been the same. And that's really interesting because that really shows you how extremely strong their vision for this was. Like, before this show, you sent me an outtake of that prototype movie, so to say. And despite that being a very different thing, it still felt like it was part of Evil Dead.
Yeah.
So almost like they could have probably made the entire movie with Lego. Animations, and it would still have been Evil Dead, and that's very fascinating to me. And I think in general, I'm a very big fan of when something is made, doesn't matter what, and you can really tell that whoever made it really felt a calling to make that thing. It almost doesn't matter how good it becomes, you can just tell that there's something there, something magical that other products don't have.
Yeah.
It's a magic thing that I can't put into words.
Yeah, and there's also scenes in this that they were the first time they'd been done. Like this movie pushed the borders at the time of what you could do in film. This movie was blacklisted in so many places, including the United States when it came out. The distribution on it, once it even got popular, was only at certain theaters where it was a little bit seedy and you could show a film like that, right? The thing about that is, you've seen these things that they do in this movie, for instance, like the tree rape scene and some of the gore. You've seen this done later in other films, right? But it's not just nostalgia speaking. Those films don't do it as well as this one does.
I think it's because it's trailblazing, and
Yeah.
it's the same compared to metal bands. Like, we have bands nowadays that on a technical level are blowing everything away that has ever been made before. Yet we're still all listening to Maiden, to Slayer, to the
Absolutely.
some of those Metallica albums, Anthrax, you name them. There's a reason for that. They may not be on the technical level that we have nowadays, but those guys opened the gates for everyone to walk through them.
Right.
And there's just a certain realness, I guess you could say, to that you can never lose, and
Yeah.
that magic only happens once. And no matter what you do now, those gates are already open. You can't
Yeah.
open them again. That has been done by those guys, and they deserve all the honor they get for it. And the same thing goes for films like the Evil Dead. Like, yes, when you look at it from a objective perspective, it's a horror film in the woods in a cabin.
Yeah.
We've all seen that a million times, I'm sure.
Of
So
course.
why
Yes,
is it
yes.
that this movie somehow still draws me in, while the other ones I've already forgotten by the time the credits roll? Like, what is that? I don't know.
Well, I mean, Mike kind of said it in our last podcast. It's kind of like, what was it, Mike? How did you term it specifically? You said, so a film kind of cements itself in history as being a good story because it is a good story, right? But you look anything past like 1992, I think it was, Mike, or something like that.
Now I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
You said something like, everybody remembers those horror movies and those stories, and those ring true. But anything that's been done recently, which I'm not saying that a lot of stuff doesn't get done with a lot of heart and imagination and stuff,
Yeah.
but it doesn't hold a candle to that stuff back then. It just doesn't. It doesn't have the same feeling. So
Yeah.
it doesn't.
It comes
cement
into what I
itself
said
in
last
history
episode.
as
No, which
something great.
what I basically. Yeah. I mean, what I basically said was just like, if you look into, it doesn't necessarily apply only to movies, to stories in general. If you look at a lot of modern stories being told, specifically the way they're written or whatever, a lot of writers nowadays purely want to put how they see the world is today and what topics is going on their minds in the world today when they write their stories. And that's kind of the thing what separates it back in the day. I mean, back in the day, a lot of story writers, they had like a certain idea or certain experiences in their lives, and they wove that into a story. What leads to like those old stories becoming timeless classics, while modern story writings are literally just a product of their time. So you have like the majority of stories, movies, a lot of people remember till nowadays are like 40 to 200 years old. No, or even beyond that. And not by a lot of modern movies when they come out, like a week or two after they were in the theaters, nobody remembers them anymore. And that is what I think was my reasoning, just because that is the difference from classic to modern storytelling, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's certainly been a cutoff point at some point. I'm also not I trust your judgment on that year, because I must say I'm not well versed enough to argue that point. What I also wonder is how much does it have to do with the way that media is spread? Because nowadays, I mean, there's just more of it. There's so much media that even if you make a masterpiece,
true.
I really wonder, right? Like, let's say that that Evil Dead had never been made, or that let's say a band like Slayer. Let's say that a band like Slayer had never recorded their first album, and thrash metal and the likes would have never existed. And someone made that same album today. Would it still become as big now as it did back then? I don't think so.
I don't think so. No.
It has nothing to do with quality. It's
Probably
just like
not.
It's divide and conquer, right? And there's so much division that you cannot win.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think.
the problem with an original idea is usually execution. So you can have, and this is why this movie sticks out to me more than anything else. If you remove nostalgia and you remove the things that you really love about Evil Dead and just look at it as a story and look at what it took to get that made and put on a screen, it's unfathomable. It's unfathomable. There's so much that these guys, as a writer, director, and just a friend, decided to get together and make this. There's things that they had to do that they basically had to sell their soul for. Like they threw themselves at people to try to get money to make this movie.
They had to put their life, basically their life on the line to certain degrees. Even the finance of the movie, I think it was Bruce, I can't remember, who just straight up put his house on mortgage for it, right?
Yeah. He put
I
his
mean,
house
that's
in
quite a
order.
risky move for
Yeah.
a B movie.
And at the time, he already had a family too. So it was,
Oh yeah.
these guys were literally going to go, and it was said by Rob Tapert later. It was literally going to go until the last red cent from all of their pockets were used to try to get this movie made. And the passion that went into that is clearly shown on the screen. And not to take anything away from the newer Evil Dead movies that have come out. I'm not sure if you saw those, but
Not yet, no.
they're good, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't hold a candle to this in terms of passion and in terms of craft and in terms of whatever we have to pay and whatever weird tricks that we have to use to get this thing to work on film. We're going to use every red cent we have to make that work. And it's
And
apparent.
there's also really something to be said for having minimal means to do something. Like, people tend to be much more creative if they're not able to do what they want to do.
Right.
And you get solutions that are completely out of left field. And I think the entire vibe of that movie is because there's so many of those bizarre solutions to problems
Yeah.
that it makes you go like, what just happened?
Yeah. Yeah, and a stroke of luck too. Like I think
Obviously, yeah.
I think artists and people who are creative kind of tend to recognize their own as well. And say what you want about Stephen King, but he was one of the guys who got to screen this before it went out, and they couldn't finance to get it out. And he was like,
And he praised it, right?
he was like, no, he said, guys, up until now, this is the scariest movie I've ever seen, and I'm going to tell everyone that. And so that's what he did. He went out.
That helped.
He
Yeah,
went to
that kinda helps.
Fangoria, the magazine, and he went to reporters, and he was like, "Hey, we need to get this film made. I'm here to tell you right now, this is the scariest film I have ever seen. And if this thing doesn't see the light of day, then we've all made a huge mistake." And that's what pushed
Yeah,
it.
that's generally what you need,
Wow.
right? It's not
Okay.
who you are, it's who you know. When you know someone that big in that scene that is basically telling everyone, check this guy out or check this movie out, then you're kind of golden, I think.
Yeah. And so it worked, but it wasn't without a lot of blood and a lot of tears and a lot of late nights and a lot of freezing, because these guys. So if you look at the movie and the setting, they used everything they had. There is no set design. There is no prop. There is no anything. It is exactly what they had on hand to make this movie.
They just ran through the woods in the dark on bare feet and
Yeah.
hoped that they wouldn't break something.
It's the fucking Blair Witch
crazy.
Project, you know?
That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Surely you have been in the woods in the complete dark, right? It's
Yeah.
just like you're running into a void. Imagine
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It feels so
I know.
counterintuitive.
Yeah.
And they're out there too. This is way out there in North Carolina. You know, this
Yeah,
is,
the location was real, right?
or
It was
Tennessee. Sorry, no, Tennessee. This is in Tennessee. The location's real.
the main location, I should say.
It's-
Some of them are in the garage, I think. But
Yeah,
something
no,
else.
it's an actual cabin. So the story goes, and this is from Sam Raimi and Rob Tapert. The guy wanted to move away from civilization because he was tired of fucking people, right? We
Yep.
all understand that, right?
Wonder what that feels like.
So this guy went out and built a cabin for himself because it was just him, and then he died right after he
Yep.
built the cabin. So
Like a week later or something.
right,
Like,
the property was just sitting there, and they were looking for a place to film this, and that thing just popped up out of nowhere. And they, without even seeing it, they were like, "We'll do it." And so they got the entire film crew and everybody that they could muster, whatever props, and brought them out in the middle of the woods. Was it 200 and something miles from civilization to film this film?
That's quite a long way off. Like from
Yeah.
what I hear, they even had trouble just getting showers after all the
Yeah. Well, half the time they didn't.
tasteful
They said-
scenes. Imagine being in that position where you get like 500 gallons of blood poured over
Yeah.
you, and then you're like, okay, I
Can't
guess I
take a
can't take
shower.
a shower today.
Yeah.
I'm just going to hit the hay, guys.
And
Dear
and
Lord.
they were freezing the whole time because this was done in the winter in Tennessee. And if you've been to Tennessee around the wintertime, it's fucking brutal. Like it's
Why did they do that, by the way? Was it just because it happened to land that way? It just seemed like
it
a
happened to
pretty-
land
pretty
that
bad
way, and
decision,
they
right?
had the chance and the time, and everybody was able to film the film at that time, so they took it.
That was the reason, because I also think at some scenes they had like different actors jump in
Fake
as
ships,
lookalikes.
yeah.
Exactly.
Actually,
Because the original guys had to leave already.
Yeah.
yeah, there's like just that you mentioned it, Nim. I have the his up here. You have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 different actors playing Shimp in the movie.
That's more than the original cast.
Yeah.
Actually, no, 10.
10.
That's more than enough, I hope.
Yeah. And so you know where the fake shimp comes from, right? So
Yeah, that was something from the theater group. I feel
Three Stooges.
That's right. Yeah.
There were times in the Three Stooges where the actor playing Shemp would switch, and it was a different actor, and the guy looked nothing like him, but you were just supposed to accept that that was him, right? And so that term came up from making Three Stooges. They would call him the fake Shemp, and because Sam Raimi's such a huge Three Stooges fan, that became kind of what they would say for stand-ins, right? And that's where that comes from. But yeah,
Okay.
I should
You're
really
right.
watch Three Stooges sometime because I feel like a lot of things I like tend to float back to that at some point. So maybe that's my next Evil Dead.
maybe it's crazy.
It's
So
almost the same, right?
yeah, I was talking about it with Mike earlier. So Sam Raimi was never, admittedly, not a horror fan. Like he wasn't. But he knew that he liked comedy and he knew he could write a story. And he said, okay, he was talking to Bruce. He's like, what's our market? Because what's doing well right now? And honestly, at that time, mid 70s, horror was huge. And so they said, let's make a horror film. People are going to go see it. So these guys went in to make a horror film when they didn't really understand horror. And they didn't really have like a huge idea of what had been done before, little bits and pieces of films that they
Maybe it
remember, hey, I
helped.
think this has been done in a horror movie, but I'm not sure, kind of thing. And they
So
made
I
their
think
own
that's
horror
like,
movie that ended up being one of the most popular, prolific horror movies of all time without having an understanding of horror. And I
So it
think
was
that's
kind of
why
like,
this is so mind blowing,
It was kind of like naive art then, right? Like basically they did
Basically, yeah.
something they didn't really know what the rules for it were,
Yeah.
but then it became something unique because of it. That's
And
cool.
I think that's why this movie tends to be kind of a zeitgeist of its time because they did things in this movie that hadn't been done before. Instead of just seeing someone's hand cut off and you kind of see the hand laying on the ground, they showed you everything. They showed this woman, one of the actors, biting off her own hand.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this stuff that had not been done on film before because they had no idea if that was okay or not, or if this is something that you would do in a horror movie. They just said, what's the most shocking thing that we can do? And let's do that. And that's what they did.
The 80s and the 90s were a wild time for the rating agencies.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, guys, we got this new thing right here. I have no idea what to do.
Well, it's funny to read the behind the scenes stuff because I'm such a nerd. I want to eat all this shit up, so I went back and looked at it. But the only thing Sam Raimi knew, and this is an actual quote, the only thing he knew is that it had to do with the amount of blood that you use on screen. So he's like, well, I really want to do this. So what if we just change the color of the blood every now and then to a different color? Because then we can say it's not blood. And that's what they did. There's
didn't
scenes
help,
in
right?
this movie where there's no blood, but it's a black goo or something. And that's how they got past the censor.
Personally thought that made it even worse. Like
It
I thought
did.
like when the black and
Yeah.
the white goo was coming out, that was just really on a visceral level very unpleasant to look at. Like blood, I don't care if 1,000 liters are falling from the sky, but when it's oatmeal rolling out of your sleeves, it's a different story.
It's disgusting and unnerving. I mean, like, I'm not. It depends on how much you can take from a horror film and the things that you're okay with looking at and the things you're not. I mean, this is obviously something different than like Terrifier or something like that. Like that stuff's strictly done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this was done on a level where every death in the film felt weighted because you had enough time to get to know the character. You had enough time to kind of understand what that person was about. And then you saw them brutally murdered. But on top of that, disgusting things would happen with the body after it was chopped up
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
It was
Like-
just complete desecration.
Oh,
basically.
God. It's awful. And I still wonder to this day how they got away with it. I mean, they didn't get away with it in Germany, obviously, but I mean, they got away with it in the States and people loved it. And I think it was because of the splatter factor. This is one of the first actual
yeah.
splatter horror films.
Yeah, true.
But it doesn't become that way until the end of the movie. That's the thing. So you could have made it through the first hour of this movie and been okay. But once that last 40 minutes rolls around, it's a tough watch if you have a
Yeah.
problem with seeing blood and guts and disgustingness.
Mhm.
I think,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, the setting worked really well because Sam Raimi admittedly likes to torture his actors, right?
From what I heard, they were pretty inviting to it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Bruce specifically, he laughs about it now, but I'm not sure he was laughing about it then. I think he actually broke something during the making of the film, and they had to stop.
I'm surprised he only broke one thing, to be honest. Like it is a short nod to the second movie, but there's a scene where he's just smashing these plates on his head, and I'm just looking at it from the perspective of filming an actor. I was like, dude,
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of somebody like Bruce Campbell. He's willing to do anything he can
He
just to
does
get the
anything and everything.
Holy
He's
shit,
really
man.
terrific at that stuff.
Yeah.
and
That,
there's
that makes him a hero in that
Yeah.
regard, definitely. Yeah.
and there's so many things in this movie that didn't make it into the final cut where he abuses himself even more, but it just didn't make it into the movie. Evil Dead 2, that guy, he said himself, was black and blue for months after that film was.
Yeah, from what I heard, in general, whenever you see cuts and scratches on his face
It's
during
real.
the movie, those are not painted.
It's real, yeah.
It's real. He actually has a scar right here on his face that goes across his chin and up, and that's from one of the Evil Dead movies. So
Well, you should wear that one with pride, I think. You
Yeah.
earned that one.
you got to hand it to Bruce, dude. The guy is probably one of the most unassuming best friends in the world.
Let me just mortgage my house so you can torture me in the woods.
And that's what it comes
And
down
film
to.
it.
But I mean, what came out at the end of people actually having a passion and being crazy enough to make something like this was one of the best horror movies of all time. And that's really, from my part, that's really what makes this special. If I add the dose of nostalgia into it from enjoying this film as much as I did when I was a kid and when I was in college, then it makes it something so much more. But if you just look at it for the bare bones aspect of what it is, how it was made, and the reaction to it, it's nothing short of amazing.
It's very admirable, I
Yeah.
think so too. And I also think, to also give a little bit of counter to all the great and positive things about the movie. I mean, it's also certainly not a movie without flaws, and that's totally fine. And especially, I mean, even for a B movie, the acting is pretty campy. Especially the first half of the movie, you can just tell that most of them just don't really have the experience yet.
Yeah.
But because of the vibe of the movie, it's kind of easier to forgive that and to just look past it. Like if it was a shitty movie and the acting was bad, you would just stop watching.
Yeah,
Yet
exactly.
we didn't, so there must have been something that kept us in despite all that.
Yeah.
And then I feel like kind of towards the end of the movie, and by they I mean mainly then refer to Bruce himself, because of course in the end he's by himself. Spoiler alert. He really gets into his groove there. Like those last 20 minutes, it's almost like you're watching a completely different movie, but it doesn't feel like it's an abrupt jump. It just suddenly lands into that position where he's alone in this messed up place, and he drops the whole he's kind of a weak man at the start of the movie, right?
Yeah.
Like he's kind of relying on the other dude to figure it out. And also it's kind of shown during that scene where the I think he's called Scott, right? The other guy.
Yeah, Scotty.
He chopped up his girlfriend, and Ash is like, "Hey Scott, yeah." Like, what are we gonna do, right? And you can tell he's still hoping that Scott has an answer that makes sense to fix this entire thing. And I think for someone like Bruce in that scene in that movie, and also in real life, when you're someone like Bruce, it's kind of important to lose that person that you're leaning on.
Right.
So you have to become that person yourself. And it's going to be a rough awakening. But as we all know, once he goes through movie 2 and 3, he kind of becomes an action hero in the end. Yeah. So that went really well for him, I feel.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting character arc, I have to say.
Yeah, that's another thing about this movie that's so good is kind of like they cut your expectations of what you think is going to happen completely. And it's such a brilliant move, because if you can, it's impossible to do this really, but if you can go back and think of Evil Dead as a standalone and you're seeing it for the first time, you would have never thought Ash would be the guy to end up last.
No. He really doesn't have main actor energy. You probably think like I would have guessed Scotty, but he's kind of too much of a douchebag from the start. So I thought it was just one of those movies where everyone's going to get killed off one by one and evil wins, which technically happens, but we got the alternate ending from Evil Dead 2, but that wasn't planned right then, right? That wasn't planned.
No,
I think,
so what happened was they did not know how to end the film, and Sam Raimi, like I said, is a big Three Stooges fan. He's a fan of horror, and even though they had tried their best to keep this guy from putting in funny things into the film and a sense of humor, because everybody wanted it to be really dark, he couldn't help it, and he did. And that last scene is that. He's like, hey, you know that shit at the beginning of the movie where we're going through the lake with that little demon? It sounds like a demon on a motorcycle. The little demon on the motorcycle is what I like to call it. And he's like, let's do that again, except this time let me hit Bruce in the face with the camera. And that's how the ending was made. Right?
So that classic move.
Yeah,
classic move.
it's brilliant.
I thought it was perfect. I loved it.
What's really funny about it is if you go back and you watch Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, and then the continued series Ash versus Evil Dead, you pick up things from being a fan that you now realize in the first movie. You can go back and watch the first movie, and you see every element of humor where they just couldn't hold Sam Raimi back from doing some dumb shit. Right?
He has a very unique flavor
Yeah.
of handling things. Like even just basic stuff like the fucking car, dude. Like that car is in every Sam Raimi movie. Is
Yeah,
it
and
just
that
his
was his
beaten up
mom's car. He didn't fucking have a car, and they needed a car for the movie, so she loaned him her car, and that's the car that they used to film the movie, and that car has become famous now because of his mom. I
Or
just
do they
think
just
that's
keep
cool.
fixing it? Because I mean, that thing has to have gone through some rough times, right?
Shit, man. I mean, what happened to it in Army of Darkness? That fucker got completely
Just
converted into
threw it
a
up from the sky.
medieval
Was
fucking tank, you know? But somehow he always fixes it back up, and that's always been his car. But I love that.
Man,
That's one of the biggest
you
jokes.
must
in
love
series.
that car a lot, man.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that fucking car. I would love to have that car just to say I have, the Delta,
Yeah, I can imagine.
From
I
Evil
think
Dead.
you have a couple of collection items, right?
Yeah, a few. I don't know if I could get away with a car. I think my wife would kill me. I think she'd kill me. I'd put that thing in the yard, and she'd be like, "What the fuck is that?" And I'm like, "Well, you know Evil Dead, right? The movie that I've made you watch a million fucking times. That's the car from the movie." And she'd be like, "Take that shit back. This is ridiculous."
The trick is to make it trickle in. Like, just first you buy the door, then you buy a wheel. At some point, you just drop it
Yeah,
down.
in a few tires.
She's smart. She'd catch on real quick. She's like, "This is gonna become the Delta, isn't it?" Like, there's no hiding anything from her. It's impossible. She's like, "I'm fine with your basement full of chainsaws and zombies and all this horror stuff, but a car is maybe a little bit too much." I would love to
Maybe
have
right,
it,
to
though.
be honest.
So these guys, there's the element of humor that I was talking about that keeps getting inserted. There's one that I can point out to you that you'll probably understand when you hear it, and if you go back and look at it, you'll be like, "Holy." So Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell love filming things in reverse because that gives everything a different feel, and Bruce is really good at that. But
Works
that's
really
Sam
well.
Raimi's idea, and he's almost got his own way of direction and filmmaking in every film that he does. He uses this technique. There's a scene where Ash's sister Cheryl gets raped in the woods by the tree. It's wrapping around her, and it's a really intense scene. Like, you know what's going to happen. Even now, if you go and watch it, people are like, "Ooh, dude, this is fucking racy."
Yeah,
It's
it's kind
racy,
of
right?
brutal.
But he completely ruins that moment of tension by reversing a
Slamming it in
stick
there, yeah.
straight between her legs and this really weird Three Stooges sound that comes
Mm.
out of it, right? And it
I remember
completely
seeing that for the
breaks that
first
moment
time.
of tension.
That's actually one of the first things I saw about the movie. Like I said, I played games first that were inspired by it, but then at some point, like I had an older brother, and generally when we watched a new horror movie, he would be the one to introduce me to it. So I kind of just walked into his room, and they were watching this horror movie, and then that thing happened, and I was like, "What the fuck are you watching?"
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, dude,
Yeah,
it's the Evil
yeah.
Dead. Oh, this is the Evil Dead. Okay, I'll join in."
Christ. Yeah,
But yeah, that was something, right?
it's something that hasn't been done before, and I don't think it's been done since. If I'm not,
Yeah, I think that he can only assume that there was some trouble about it, right?
yeah, there was. That was one of the scenes in contention with it getting an NC-17 rating. So he had gotten to the point to where everyone was fine with the blood and gore. They'd edited enough of that away to where the censors were happy about it, and they got away with a lot more than they probably should have.
Yeah.
If you look at movies at that time. But that scene in particular, they wanted that completely taken out. And the only way that Sam was able to convince them to leave it in was he said, "Look, I'm going to cut this film as best I can with that scene not in it, and you watch this part and tell me if it makes sense." Because
It
there's no
makes
way
no
to go
sense that it
back.
doesn't happen.
Yeah, there's no way to go back and film anything else in its place. There's no way to explain this away. It happened. And the censors bought it. They were like, "You know what? It makes no sense without it, so keep it."
Has he ever said anything about why he wanted it to be that way? Like, was it intended to get the reaction that it?
Yeah, he wanted it to be uncomfortable. So just like he likes torturing his actors and he gets a kick out of that, he wants the audience to feel really bothered. And I think that is the difference in a scary movie that anybody can watch and a horror film that's very visceral. At least in the horror world, you have to do things that make people feel extremely uncomfortable. And that scene and pretty much every subsequent scene of murder and death after that is a really hard watch. It's very uncomfortable. Okay, so here's a question, right? What scene in this movie gets you every time when you see it? You're just like, oh, fuck. What's the scene?
Actually, it's the claymation part at the very ending where he throws in the book into the fire, and then there's this really weird animation that goes on for quite long. And the thing is, like, there's these shots of the Deadites. I don't know if they were called Deadites.
Yeah, they were.
But you
Well,
know what I mean.
no, they weren't introduced in this film, but
right.
they are, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, because of the way that they're kind of just crumbling and slowing down, I kind of feel sad for them. I feel empathy for them at that moment. I'm like, are they feeling sadness? Is the original person still in there and is just kind of feeling as it's crumbling apart? I'm probably thinking about it deeper than I should, but for some reason, that scene always gets me in a weird way, and I'm not sure if I like it even.
Well, if you didn't like it and you felt uncomfortable with it, then they did their job.
Then that was probably the goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no explanation as to what these things are other than demonic spirits that inhabit a body. So you don't know if the real person knows what's going on there at the end when they're crumbling away and rotting.
Yeah.
So it is uncomfortable. You're right. They don't even explain that until I think part 3. Like part 2 doesn't even really go into that. You know?
And I'm even glad that they didn't explain it because that's the reason why I'm still thinking about it. Right?
Yeah.
There's also these scenes. Now I can't remember if this happens in part 1 already, where the Deadites switch back to the original person to fool the other person.
Yeah.
So they must have access to the regular person, but obviously they're still in control.
Right.
So I feel like it's really like a parasite that just overtakes everything, but can still read your mind like you can yourself. And that by itself is such a horrific idea. It reminds me of those. You've probably seen those worms that I think it's frogs that get affected by them.
God,
I can literally see them.
It's
That's so
crazy,
brutal.
right? Yeah. Yeah, that bothers me too. I actually have a hard time watching those videos, like
Exactly.
on the Nature Channel, because it is just fucking disgusting, man. It's creepy.
It is really brutal.
It's
and I can
creepy
only
on a level that, you know.
And I think a movie like Evil Dead, it's usually the stuff that I take away from it, the stuff that messes with my head. It's not necessarily what we've seen in the movie, but the implication of it.
Yeah.
I've also thought a long time about scenes like the forest rape scene. I've thought a pretty long time about what I think about that scene, and I find it really hard to come up with an answer because no matter what I come up with, it always ends with, I hate it, but it cannot be removed.
Right.
And it's like, maybe it's necessary, and it brings me back to the whole idea of if you have something evil or something destructive and you try to push it down by censoring it, it's not going to go away. It's just going to be pushed into the next room and you don't control it in that room.
Right.
And I think stuff like this is really like, by bringing it out in the open, I'm not saying that it was necessarily a genius move, but it does confront you with that deeply uncomfortable reality, and in this case it is in a controlled environment. I mean, I'm assuming that everyone on the set agreed on what was going to happen.
Well, from all accounts, everybody did. Everybody was fine with the story. If Sam wanted to go overboard with an effect or make it more gory than it was, everybody cheered him on. So it was
exactly.
It was kind of a, ooh, we can't do that, can we? Let's do that. And everybody just pushed him to do more, and that's what worked.
Yeah,
but,
so it's very much like a play about something that you really don't want to see.
Right.
But it's better to watch it in a play than watch it happen in real life.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's a good argument for horror movies in general. You know,
it's a surrogate of something bad, basically.
And it's actually worked to the advantage of this. This is controversial, but it's a real thing. So, The Exorcist, for example, right? The Exorcist is kind of that. You have a demon that takes over a little girl's body. It gives her control back every once in a while to where you can see the real person underneath the demon. And that makes that movie so much more effective.
Yeah, it's gnarly.
But the Catholic Church pushed money into that film as much as they could because it was a tool for them to get people scared enough to, go back to church. And it worked brilliantly because you feed off of a fear that people don't want to see. And if you make people see things and fear it, you can control them, And that's what you're doing with the same
with Doom, then, I wonder. Why did they fight back against Doom so much? Well, in Doom, you're literally shooting demons. Shouldn't that be the most Catholic game on the planet?
Well,
Yeah.
that's one thing I don't understand. I know that caught a lot of flack, but did it catch a lot of flack because of what happened with Columbine, or was it catching flack before then?
I'm not sure about it, to be honest.
Well, the
can't
thing with Doom was it was multiple video games at the time. It was Doom and Mortal Kombat that sparked that controversy, and it was more the government and the media that were complaining about it than actually the church or whatever. The church had very little to do with it. It was back in the time the government and media were claiming that these portrayals in video games specifically make people violent and they make people serial killers. Then you had a lot of school shootings going on, and they blamed it on that, of course, because two guys were Doom fans or whatever.
Yeah, so it's definitely the fall of Doom, right, and not of
Exactly.
much more systemically going wrong. In
I think it's really, really easy, and I think media has been a target of that kind of thing for a really long time, and it hasn't stopped.
Yeah. And as fans of horror and gaming and metal, we kind of fall in that perfect cross section of getting blamed for all the evil in the world while not harming a fly.
Exactly. It's a really weird dynamic. It's a really weird dynamic. I don't think it says much about the human condition to get a kick out of that kind of thing. I think there's an thing in human beings that enjoys that kind of thing, but kind of like what you're saying, Nim. If it's in a controlled setting, then there shouldn't be anything wrong with it, because nobody's getting hurt, really, nobody's being harmed. It's strictly entertainment. And I think that's okay. I think that it's just a misunderstanding of what that actually is that causes all the hate and causes all the problems around the world with media and video games and movies.
Yeah. Like I must also say, like I'm still not completely sure about the answer for that entire situation either. Like I also think what you just said that basically sums up how I feel about it. But I'm sure I'm also missing something important there. Because I'm always assuming that everyone gets a tiny slice of the truth, so there must be something in the middle that I'm missing, but I'm not sure what it is.
Well, I think movies like Evil Dead and, tragedy games like Doom and stuff like that so it's that whole debate of there cannot be any light without dark. Like you can't truly enjoy peaceful times, you can't enjoy nature, you can't enjoy the really good, wholesome things about life without actually seeing the bad parts of it. And I think that you're probably a more level-headed person, just in general and overall better if you understand and appreciate how dark things can get, to be able to appreciate the good things in life. And honestly, it helps you appreciate the good things in life more, I think. If you
or at the very least,
understand
be less
that
naive
part.
about them, I think. At the very least, be less naive about them, I think it's probably also important. Like, you can enjoy good things without having seen bad things, but I think it's also easier to be fooled by very easy traps that other people would not fall for. I must admit, I can't really think of a practical example right now, but I do think that having seen bad things, having experienced horrible things and evil, makes that you have a certain kind of reluctance towards accepting that something is truly good or truly beautiful. So once you find it and you truly see, okay, no matter from what direction I prodded this is true beauty, then that becomes like this holy grail that would otherwise have just been one of many beautiful things to you.
Well, I think I can give you a good example of that, right? So if you watch, we can just use this example. If you watch Evil Dead and you take it at face value and you say, this awful, terrible situation just happened in front of my eyes, and it was one of the most horrific things I've ever seen. God damn, I'm glad that doesn't happen to me. And look at what I have. Look at how good things are going for me. So
it relativates things.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
You can enjoy that as an entertainment, for yourself. And it is fun to watch stuff like that. And I think the appeal for horror movies, at least for me, and I don't know how it is for everybody else, maybe you guys can chime in on it, but the feeling of being scared, the feeling of feeling uneasy and not knowing what's coming next is a very exhilarating feeling. Right.
Yeah, it's like a roller coaster of an emotion that's just kind of waiting to arrive, and then just suddenly it hits you, but you never know exactly when.
Yeah,
it's such a classic thing in any horror movie as well, right? When they're building the jump scare, and it's very obvious that it's going to come, and it's just like, I think when you have a good director, they know exactly when to do that, and it's usually like half a millisecond later than you're expecting. That makes it so good.
Yeah.
And they do that a couple of times in Evil Dead as well. Like, you're never surprised that there is a jump scare.
Yeah, but you're surprised.
But it works. It still works.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of that in this movie. I hear people always say, I can't stand that movie. It's full of jump scares talking about modern horror. And I tend to agree with them. Like
Yeah,
there's a lot of
if it's
films.
cheap,
Yeah, it's
if it's
cheap.
undeserved.
It doesn't cause you to have to think deeply about anything. It doesn't, there's no imagination there. None. To scare somebody with a jump scare is a cheap scare. But yeah, yeah, it's basically a haunted house. That's all it is. But if
Yep.
you can make a movie like Evil Dead where it causes you to think and it causes you to be kind of enveloped in this atmospheric world, which is what that is. The whole movie is so heavy on atmosphere.
Yeah,
And everyone
that's the
after
entire
that
thing, I think.
is so heavy on atmosphere. That's what makes this movie good. And it's kind of the same thing with the movie that we just did on the last podcast, The Thing. That's also a master of
Oh yeah,
how
that is
you
an
build
absolutely amazing
suspense
movie.
and how you build a world and how you build an environment to where the person watching the movie actually feels like they're there. And then when something bad happens, like Cheryl turns into a deadite and they have to stick her in the basement and lock her up and her horrible face is there staring at you.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea.
Holy
I don't
shit,
think I've seen
man.
it anywhere else. I don't think I've seen before that the monster of the movie is just right up in front of you and you get to really check it out and feel
Yeah.
the dread. I also think it confronts the audience. It makes the audience go like, if I were stuck in that cabin right now, what would I do to handle this situation?
Exactly.
Truth is, you'd probably not be faring any better than
No.
these guys.
And the answer is you would be doing exactly what these guys do. And I think that's, oh, you got the popo coming, huh?
Wasn't me, folks. I hope I'm not gonna get raided right now.
Yeah.
So,
The confrontation
yeah,
of what you would do with the situation.
with this movie, you would do exactly what these guys are doing. I think
Probably.
you could put any highly trained person in combat scenarios or in any scenario into this situation, and they would lose their mind just as much as Ash has, just as much as Scotty has. Like, you would not know what to do. And you would be looking to the person next to you for answers because it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, you
The
just hope
movie-
that the other person has like this brilliant solution that makes it all go away.
Yeah.
Like I always really liked. I've seen so many horror movies where people just stay in a horrific situation, and you're just constantly thinking, "Just walk out of the house, dude! Like, why are you not leaving?"
Yeah.
But they're trying that in that movie, and then the bridge is not just destroyed; it really looks like it's just purposely curled up.
Yeah.
As if the hand of God came down
Yeah.
and just ripped it apart,
Pick
basically.
the bridge up, dude.
It gives you such a clear message. The message is not just you can't leave. The message is whatever powers are playing here are so much bigger than you that you have absolutely no chance of doing anything. You're basically just a puppet and we're just playing with you right
Yeah.
now.
And that's exactly what it is.
That's excellent.
And like I said, you could put any person in that situation and they would do the same thing. There's that scene you're talking about where Ash is they've just cut up Scotty's girlfriend. Her body parts are laying on the floor and they're still moving. Like, this is how recent this is. And Ash is like, it's okay. It's okay. We're all gonna get in the car and you're gonna get your girlfriend and I'm gonna get my sister and we're gonna go and we'll take the bridge.
Yeah,
Like, you're
total
not thinking
denial,
about the
right?
fact that she's dead and your girlfriend is possessed and the bridge is gone.
That's a very human reaction. Like,
Yeah.
just make it go away with pretending it's not there. I've also wondered during that scene, but I'm pretty sure that's not the case. I've wondered if that was a continuity error that he says that, but I really don't think it is. He
No,
knows
it's
that
not.
the bridge is broken. Obviously, he knows that his sister is not doing so well. So yeah.
He's not thinking clearly at
that was
all,
good, yeah.
and honestly, nobody in this film is. And why would they be? I mean, from the time that this starts, when these demons start possessing people, up until the end, it is a train wreck. Everything
Yes.
that happens is a train wreck, and it's a mind fuck because Linda is sitting on the floor after they've chopped up, his girlfriend, Shelly. Shelly's her name. Cut up
Shelly,
Shelly.
I always
She's
forget
on
her
the
as
floor.
well. Yeah.
Linda's sitting there in the doorway laughing at them maniacally
Mhm.
while they're losing their mind. So this demon or whatever this force is loves to play with its food.
Yeah.
That's all
It's just doing it out of principle, right?
Yeah.
Like from what I understand, like why is it even why is it even so upset with him? From what I understand, it basically goes like, "Hey, you woke us up, and now we're going to torture you." Like,
Yeah. Well, I
is
mean,
it
what
out
would
of
you expect of demons, though,
spite?
Yeah,
but is it just for fun, or is there a higher goal to them? Like, are they going to take over the world? I don't know, actually.
Well, yeah, with this movie, there is a lot of unknown. It was obvious that they thought this was going to be their only movie. Like, So they
I
didn't
mean, it
explain
was very
anything.
unlikely that it wouldn't be, to be honest.
Yeah, they didn't explain anything until part two. And then part two comes along and you get an entire explanation of kind of what these things are and where they come from. And then three really brings it out. And then you can kind of go back and see where all this is going. And then that's
Yeah.
all explained away. Anything that doesn't get explained in the three movies gets explained in the series. And I feel like if you've seen the series, there's some really brilliant things that happen there that kind of
I
explain
think I've
all
seen
the
like
time.
one or two episodes and I liked it, I have to say. I'm just really bad at watching series. I just always, after 2 or 3 episodes, I just lose interest without a good reason.
I get it.
So,
I get it.
yeah. But
Yeah.
from what I saw, they did a good job. I was actually positively surprised because usually these relaunches are not great. So,
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that saved the series, at least until season two, was the fact that Sam Raimi and Rob Tapert were directly involved. So
yeah, that
this
makes a
this
big
was their
difference.
thing, and I think they used the first two seasons to go back and explain away anything that nobody really got from the first movie. It's brilliantly done. We can get to that in part two because there's a really interesting anecdote that if you haven't seen the series, you should probably know this, and it makes everything make so much more sense. It's
Interesting.
and I'm curious,
Mm.
nobody's ever asked them, but I'm curious if this is not a fan theory that they just took and ran with. Because it seems like it is.
Probably. I think like they had a lot of time to think about this. And
Yeah,
I'm sure
fucking
during that time
40 years, basically.
they had some good ideas. I'm sure they've read like a million theories, so you just kind of cobble everything together that you like and just ignore everything you don't.
Yeah, yeah.
And then just pretend that that was the plan the entire time. Like I really doubt they had this all written down on a napkin before they recorded Evil Dead 1, to be honest.
No, absolutely not. No,
But that's the way it goes.
this movie was made on a shoestring budget with a very loose script and actors that were not disposable, so they couldn't hurt them too bad. And when they left, they had to use fake ones because they didn't have a whole lot of time for filming. But even with all that, this movie, like you said, has its flaws. It has parts of it that really sometimes don't make any sense. But I think the overall feeling, the atmosphere, and the way that the actors dealt with things completely make this movie. Like,
Works for me.
yeah, there is no other movie that I can think of except for maybe Event Horizon, where you have this fear and you know that there's no way out, and you know that the powers that be are bigger than you. They're there to take you out, they're there to mess with you, and there's no way out. You are just a pawn in this game. That's probably the only other movie that I can think of that actually is effective.
Well, one movie I liked pretty much was Stephen King's The Fog.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Fog. Oh yeah.
The Fog.
yeah,
From Stephen King.
yeah. God, you know what though, man? The fucking original movie was so good, and then the remake was
Series.
just hopeless. I mean, it was good, but the ending was just hopeless. Didn't you think?
You mean where the guy shoots his son and then
Yeah,
everything?
man.
Yeah.
Oh, that was such an evil trick.
Oh yeah, that was pretty. I forgot about that.
Man, talk about ending a movie on a complete downer,
Yeah.
dude. That was just evil.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this was the most depressing ending they could have come up with, which was
Jesus Christ.
perfect for a movie that's about the world ending, basically. And it's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely thought that was very fitting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that,
well-
that movie is a very hopeless film. You're right.
Yeah. Well,
Well, I mean,
I was
that's,
thinking the same
that's the thing. I talked to you and Nim before. I was like, well, I have the breakdown in front of me where we can go through the film, but at the same time, I feel like there's so much to say about this film, and I don't know
Yeah.
any horror fans that haven't seen Evil Dead. I've never met one. I haven't. I mean, we can go through it, and there's probably some things we'll remember that we'll want to bring up,
probably.
but I mean,
Just edit it down to 5 minutes, it'll be fine.
yeah, okay.
Probably, but also because we were talking about The Fog, the remake of The Fog.
Okay.
Is there something about that movie, Matt, that you might have mentioned? There's a quote from that movie that's in one of our songs.
No.
Out of a frying pan into the fire.
Shit. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
In the beginning of that, you hear that quote from a woman speaking. That is directly from Stephen King's The
Okay,
Fog.
I get it. Okay, I didn't know, man. I had no idea. But that's one of those sayings that I've heard a bunch of other places before that movie. But that's where you took it from specifically for the song.
Exactly.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Stephen King is very hit and miss with his films, man.
Mm.
It's almost like it's a revolving door of bad and good films. But
True.
Yeah.
I think he would agree with that himself.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
that
he would.
hates many of the movies that have been made about his books.
I got nothing but love for Stephen King, man. And I don't think that it's not really his fault if the movie is not translated well from the book, because the books are great.
That's what it is.
I mean, the Dark Tower series for me still remains one of the best stories ever written. If you've read it,
Enjoyed it a lot. Thought there were a lot of flaws in it, but I still enjoyed it a lot.
it was good. I mean, I don't think any really good piece of art that's timeless doesn't have a few things wrong with it. You know, I don't mind that. And sometimes those little things that don't really fit, kind of like in Evil Dead, you can obviously tell at the end when all this shit starts breaking loose that it's claymation. It's obviously claymation, and it's poorly done by today's standards, but it was the best they could do, and it's effective. Very effective. And I'm able to overlook that just for the whole movie as a package. Like, I don't know.
Like I said, to me, it's a scene that gets to me, so I think it's definitely more than worth its salt, so to say. Yeah.
You want to really be grossed out, Nim?
Always.
You know that scene at the very end where they show Scotty's arm and his sleeve, and oatmeal starts leaking out of his arm? So that was oatmeal, but it was also 200 crushed up cockroaches mixed with.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
That is like not a big fan of the creepy crawlies, so that doesn't make things better. But there is also some live cockroaches there, and I got them
there's
from
some
a
live
local
ones
school
too.
or something.
Yeah,
They're
so
really big ones,
Madagascar cockroaches, and they also have the normal like Tennessee cockroaches with the red head that are in the movie. But Sam Raimi wanted to use a lot of bugs in the movie because he knew that bugs creep people out. But all they could get was cockroaches because there's a surplus of them in Tennessee. So
well, that's just great. I think cockroaches are probably some of the worst.
So they got delivered cockroaches, and then they were like, "Hey, what if we ground these things up into a paste with oatmeal and use that as the ooze that comes out of his sleeve?" And that's exactly what they did, and it's effective.
Dear Lord.
Fucking disgusting.
I did not know that, and I will never look at that scene the same way.
Yeah. The other scene that gets me, and I don't know if anybody really realizes it's going on, but his sister is the final deadite that's in front of him before she falls down and dies, right? So when she falls and dies, she doesn't just fall down and die in front of him. Her head hits the floor, splits open in this gigantic explosion of blood that just goes all over his face.
Yeah.
To me, that's the scene where I'm just like, oh, Jesus Christ, did we have to go that far with it, you know?
Yeah, we have a nice echo here.
This is like the mirror scene.
I mean, well, at least we have in the podcast the part something unexpected happening.
It's horror night, and all kinds of weird stuff happens. Okay, so yeah, there's just one of me now. I killed the other copy, so we're good now.
Her evil Ash doppelganger.
Which one am I? You don't know.
Nim.
So yeah, like Matt said, there's this scene where there's just lots of gore going into the mouth of Ash, and it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
that stuff really gets to me. As a kid, I hated that so much. Like anything going into or out of throats was my absolute turning point in any horror. It was so bad that I couldn't watch Alien when I originally saw it as a kid.
To say that, I was like, Alien didn't bother you.
That movie, just as soon as that thing just lodged onto his face and you could see, okay, it's actually really going in there. I was like, okay, I'm out. Yeah. It took me almost 20 years to watch Alien for the first time, and then of course I realized what a great movie I had missed because of that. But that's okay. It happens a few times in this series as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, this whole thing from Evil Dead to Army of Darkness and then to the subsequent 2 films, now going to be the 3rd film, it's all a really hard watch. The scene that gets me is the pencil in the ankle scene. I can barely
make it crash.
Yeah.
Dude, that looks so real to me. Like, it
looks fantastic.
It looks fucking great. It looks real. And that's why I have a really hard time watching that scene. I can't... Anything with feet or ankles or legs, like if I see like an ankle snapping in a horror movie or I see somebody lose a foot, dude, I'm like...
Everyone has an Achilles heel like that. In your case, it's of course fitting, but... yeah, and I think that what I also really like about this movie that fits to that is everything that's uncomfortable lasts for a very long time on the screen. It's never just, it's just like...
Yeah, there's a scene with Shelley's death when she gets the knife in the back as the dead
Yeah,
eye.
she just screams for 30 seconds straight.
Dude, it doesn't fucking end. She's like, I'm like, when is she gonna stop? Even
has
when I
to be
was
the longest
watching it, even when I was watching it to try to like get back into it to get the scenes in my head, Chrissy was like, "Is she ever gonna stop screaming?"
It has to be it must have been a record of some kind, right? I've never seen any movie do that such a
I
ridiculous.
haven't either. It took forever. And that scene with the dagger to where the entire time it cuts from her screaming to the face of the dagger spitting out blood from her back to her screaming is just a fucking annoying scene. But it's annoying in a good way.
Yeah.
What a beautiful movie. But
Mike,
also
did
about
you
that.
have anything? Oh, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, let's have Mike.
What?
Did you have anything
Yeah.
about this movie that was difficult for you to watch? Or anything that bothered
Well,
you?
the only thing that actually bothered me was the forced rape scene. That's the only one that bothered me. Stuff with the ankle and stuff like that, it does bother me for a short second, but it's just like for a few seconds, and then I'm like out of it. But
Okay.
me, it's probably mainly because of my profession. I'm a butcher, so that's stuff like that
Okay.
lost in effect. That stuff like that when body parts are being ripped out and everything lost any shock effect with me. I don't know, around when I was 15, 16.
I was going to. This is the perfect moment to start talking about the sound effects because those probably also sound very familiar to you then, right?
What? The sound effects?
Yeah. Because from what I understand, a lot of the stabbing and all kinds of stuff is just chicken bones
Yeah.
and poking into corpses and just
Yeah.
all that good stuff. It's probably just work noise to you.
Yeah, not anymore. I mean, I yeah, but true. I mean, I haven't worked actively as a butcher since 2005.
All right.
I went to college and studied food technology after that. But yes, you're right.
That's a twist.
Yeah. That is a twist, definitely. But yes, you're right. A lot of it sounds like at work.
Yeah,
That
sound
adds
design.
to how visceral this film is too. So they didn't go for your traditional, like soundstage making stuff. They literally, like you said, Nim, they took chicken carcasses of chickens and they stabbed them with pencils and knives and put the microphone right up next to it, and that's how they
Slapped
got
it
those
against the
sounds.
wall, all that good stuff.
Dude,
yeah.
it is an actual sound, and it's very unnerving when
really-
it happens.
The sound in general in this movie really appeals to me. I mean, for obvious reasons, I am very interested in audio in general. I've also done some light Foley work. For people who don't know what that is, Foley is the making of sounds for movies and series, like all the
Oh, shit,
rustling
dude.
and everything
That's
you hear.
cool.
That's a job by itself. And honestly, if I wouldn't be into making metal and stuff, that's probably the direction I would go in because it requires a lot of creative problem solving with sound, so to say.
Yeah.
It's really the type of stuff where you have to close your eyes and go like, is this the sound that I'm trying to make? And I think some of these classic horror movies, I don't know what it is. Maybe it is because they had less of a budget and they just had to go with very practical solutions for everything.
Yeah.
But they nailed it. They absolutely
Yeah.
nailed it. And you know
They
what the
did.
favorite sound to me in this movie is? It's not the bone crunching and everything. It's the dripping of the water from the pipes in the basement. It's
the end of the
absolute
film, yeah.
perfection. I really don't know what it is about that sound, and I'm not sure if it's the same audio bite or not. But I swear, in that game Blood that I was talking about at the start, they also had those dripping noises. That is ASMR to me. I could listen to that for hours. I just really love the space that creates, and
Yeah. Yeah.
this movie does it so well. And the other winner in the sound department is the wind.
Yeah.
That wind
Oh, yeah,
sample.
you're right. Yeah.
And that's a real one, right? They
Yeah,
recorded
it's
that
real wind.
near to that cabin, if I
So,
recall correctly.
from what I understand, all the wind noises were taken from the location.
Yeah. So it just really sounded like that, and that's
Yeah.
I've heard that wind sound in many other places. I'm pretty sure it's in games like Unreal as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's a certain howl in that wind that I can recognize immediately when I hear it in the background of a movie. It's like, it's the evil dead wind.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that a lot of movies after this have used the sound effects from this film because I know I've heard them before.
It's
I
the
know I've heard
Wilhelm
them again.
scream of wind, so to say.
Yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, they're a real winner with that one. And of course, they could have complained that other people stole that from him. I'm not sure what the laws for that kind of sampling is. I thought it's illegal, but maybe it's not. But from what I heard, they have stolen more than a few sounds from other movies as well. So they probably just didn't
Yeah.
want to.
That's
open
kind of
that
one
kind
of
of
those.
worms.
The way I understand it with movies is you get like a sample pack or you make your own sounds, and sometimes a director wants to use a specific sound from another movie to pay it homage. And I guess if you're paying it homage, it's kind of like the Wilhelm scream, right?
It is,
So
yeah. It's just a running joke by now.
it's a running joke, but that's one that they use over and over and over, and there's no copyright on that sound.
Speaking of the Wilhelm scream, I really expected that one to be in one of those battle scenes. It's for later, but in the third movie, the big battle scene where they're on
Yeah.
the bridge and the skeleton falls down, I was just thinking, okay, that's definitely going to be a Wilhelm scream, but I don't think it ever happens in this movie.
I never use it. I would have noticed it if they had, because it's one of my favorite yells, because it was in every Star Wars film, every
Hilarious.
Indiana Jones film, any film where someone falls. Up until this day, even now, like they use it constantly, you know?
It's so stupid because it sticks out like a sore thumb every single time as well.
It's almost obligatory at this point, you know?
But yeah, the sound design, I think it's the underrated player in anything. I think that sound is perhaps maybe at least 50% of the atmosphere of anything
I'd say so.
that you see.
I would say so.
Whenever I point it out to someone who's sitting next to me, they seem to be completely oblivious about that happening. And then once you point it out, they go like, "Oh yeah, you're right." And it's kind of weird to me how something that's so prominent doesn't really get picked up all that much on. It's a hidden hand kind of thing, I guess.
I guess maybe you have to have an ear for it, you know? Like, there's some things that happen to this film with, I want to say in particular, it's the scene where the pencil goes into Linda's foot. There is, it's a thunder sound, and I have not heard it used anywhere else, but when she gets up and pulls her hand up with the pencil, you automatically hear this rumbling thunder that takes over the sound of the film, and that's all you hear, is that and the stabbing sounds, and it's almost that sound. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and hope the hell you guys know what I'm talking about. But like if you close your eyes and grit your teeth
Yeah.
really hard, you
The
can
ears,
hear the rumbling.
resonating of the
Yeah.
ears. It's exactly what I
Yeah.
get from it.
Yeah.
That's what
That's
it is.
When you're so tense that you're just, like you
Yeah.
said, your face clenches up and your ears just start fluttering. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's what it's supposed to be. 'Cause
How
that's what I
fucking
got from it as
brilliant
well.
is that, dude?
I've never heard that anywhere
I've
else.
never
before.
heard it done
It's
again. But in that
Yeah, they do a
scene,
couple
it's
of
so
things like that.
fucking effective. And to think that you could do that and get everybody tense just because they hear that sound is a brilliant thing. Like,
It
there's
gives
a
a
lot of thought
reaction.
that went into that.
I think that's one of those visceral reaction things, because if you would be hearing that in real life, you would probably be in very deep shit. So when you hear that sound,
Yeah.
you're automatically on the back foot.
Yeah, yeah.
It's,
It's that little primordial jelly brain
Yeah,
that you
it's
have
not
in your
good.
subconscious that's like, oh, that's a terrible sound. Yeah. Okay, so come on here to watch people talk about Evil Dead. I figure we've succeeded in that because we've talked
You're
about how
torturing
great
them.
this movie is.
Like, the actors got tortured now, the listeners
Yeah.
got tortured as well.
Now you got a bunch of behind the scenes stuff you can think about afterwards. I think we'll kill this one here, and then for the next
Yep.
episode we'll pick up on Evil Dead and kind of go through that, and then Evil Dead 2, and that'll be our next episode. But I do want everybody to remember, if you are an Evil Dead fan, you know that these movies are horrendous with continuity errors, right? Like
Yeah.
absolutely fucking horrendous. And I think a lot of them are in purpose.
What they're known for.
Sam Raimi likes that kind of thing. Yeah. But here's the deal. We created a few continuity errors just now. So if anybody can pick out what we did in this episode right around this time mark that is a huge continuity error, point it out, and we may send you a t-shirt. How's that sound? Fair? Sounds fair, right?
Sounds great, right?
Yeah. Sounds on. Sounds fine.
So,
yeah.
by the way, our guest was Nim from Shylmagoghnar, and we played one song, and there's 3 albums. So you guys go check it out, listen to it, write us back if you liked it. Go send Nim's page a like. Buy the album. Vinyl's better. I just agree with buying vinyl, so buy vinyl and
Yeah.
support metal, especially metal where you know that it means something and that the artist cares about it, and it's not just fluff that you're going to hear on the radio or, background noise. Like, take a deep dive into music, enjoy it, and support the artists that do it. Other than that, I'm pretty
Thank
much
you.
good. You guys got anything else you want to say about Evil Dead or music or whatever?
I still wanted to talk about that ending scene where he goes outside and it's daylight now, right? And when he walks out that door, those 2 holes in the door where the hands had come through beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not there in Evil Dead 2.
No, they're not, but
a lot is not there in Evil Dead 2. I mean, it's crazy that for one, and it's a fucking hilarious how you can see in Evil Dead 2 that is just it's an entirely different house because it's a set, of course. And you can see that very clearly. This is clearly not happening at the same place. Yeah.
No. There's a whole bunch we have to go through to explain away things that happened in 1 that don't happen in 2. And like I said, continuity errors be damned. About 40 years later, the writer and director fixed that. And all the continuity errors by just one line that Ash says in the Ash versus Evil Dead series. But it's okay. No worries. Anything else you guys want to say?
See you guys next episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
See you for Evil Dead 2.
And to Mike and Matt, thank you for having me, and also thank you for the super kind words that you've been plugging for me. That's really very much appreciated, man.
Absolutely, man. I want to get my favorite stuff out there.
Yeah, and thank you very much for being on the show, Nim. That means a lot. Yeah.
Of course, really my pleasure. I love it here. So.
And Mike, did you ever get a chance to do your part? Your little, if you like the video or on YouTube, drop a like. Yeah, go ahead and do that.
I forgot that part. That's my part. Okay, guys. No, this is pretty
okay.
much.
I talk way too fucking much. You didn't get a chance.
What? Yeah. Okay. So I'm doing this now at the end for everybody that is still here. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button and like and comment the video. Just it'll all help us out. Yeah. And I'm tired. I said it though.
We're all on the same page. At least we enjoy doing it.
Good night, everyone.
Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Nim.
And we'll see you guys too.
The black skies, the dust.